Chapter 757. Zhuang Xiaoyu held his purple gold fan and said with bright eyes, "The young lord is injured. Leave this small character to me. Everyone, please step back." At this moment, a dang sound was heard. It was Shi Tianming pulling out his longsword. "Young Master Shi, what are you going to do?" Shang Qian was stunned. Shi Tianming lightly smiled. "Since we are traveling together, how can I not put in some effort?" Shi Tianming knows that his strength is incomparable to everyone here. However, how about leaving this pack of hunting wolves to me? Zhuang Xiaoyu smiled. "Since that's the case, I'll leave this pack of wolves to young Master Shi." Swish, swish, streaks of gray scars rushed out. More than a dozen hunting wolves charged forward at the same time, launching an attack. Shi Tianming let out a low roar and leaped from his horse. King Do flames surged from both of his arms. He heavily slashed his sword down on the ground, causing the ground to split open. The raging flames sent a few hunting wolves flying as they howled miserably. With a paw sound, Shi Tianming waved his longsword. His entire body was like a golden bell plated with flames as he stood tall within the pack of hunting wolves. Wolf corpses flew out one after another. In the blink of an eye, more than 30 hunting wolves had all died under Shi Tianming's sword. When the flames dissipated, Shi Tianming's robes fluttered in the wind. There wasn't a single drop of blood on his body. Sure enough, a holy king realm cultivator killing hunting wolves was as easy as chopping melons and vegetables. "Young Master Shi, you're so skilled." Shang Qian cheered. Shi Tianming looked as if he had eaten honey. He stood there happily, completely dumbfounded. "Be careful!" Lin Muyu shouted. A cyan shadow descended from the sky and swept its sharp claws towards Shi Tianming's back. It was a huge hunting wolf. "It's a hunting wolf king." Si Kongyao was shocked. A hound wolf king is different from an ordinary hound wolf. If a hound wolf wants to grow into a hound wolf king, it needs to cultivate for at least 5,000 years. Furthermore, the lowest rank of a hound wolf king is a 5th rank demon spirit. This hound wolf king's neck is densely covered with red, green, blue, white and black, 5 different colors. This already proves its strength. Clang. The moment Lin Muyu unsheathed her sword, she had already thrown it out. The Ice Origin sword was surrounded by the Dragon Flame's spiral destruction. With a pu sound, it pierced through the Wolf King's head and came out through the brain. However, there was no blood on the blade. The entire process was actually powered by the Fire God power. Boom! The Wolf King's corpse fell to the ground. Shi Tianming turned around and saw it in a daze. He was scared out of his wits and hurriedly said, "That was close. Thank you, young hero, for saving my life." Lin Muyu opened her palm, and the Ice Origin sword that was spinning rapidly in the air returned to its scabbard after a few turns as if it had a mind of its own. With a ding sound, the people around her were surprised. "This kid can actually control a sword?" Zhuang Xiaoyu's heart sank. The Imperial Sword technique isn't some rare martial art. However, the Imperial Sword technique will definitely weaken the piercing power of the sword. However, this kid actually used the Imperial Sword technique to kill a 5th-grade demon spirit. Isn't this a little too shocking? Chen Hang, who was behind Shang Qian, was also silent. His pair of eyes were staring at Lin Muyu. At this moment, Chen Hang had already started to pay attention to this unfamiliar kid. He's not as simple as he looks. He's simply hiding his strength. Among the crowd, only Si Kongyao and Lu Bai, who have seen Lin Muyu's strength before, were not surprised. He could even kill the Demon King rank dummy, so what can a mere 5th-grade Wolf King do? Every grain returns to the warehouse. Lin Muyu walked up and took the Wolf King's Demon Spirit Stone and said, "Let's go. There's still a pack of wolves in the north. Once they smell the blood here, they will immediately come over. We have to leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome." Si Kongyao nodded. After a whole day of traveling through the forest of no return, they encountered 2 5th-grade demon spirits, which were easily killed by Zhuang Xiaoyu. Aside from that, there were also some ferocious beasts, which were naturally left to Shi Tianming to deal with. After all, Shi Tianming needed to have a chance to show off. This kind of help was something that Lin Muyu would definitely be happy about. However, what made people sad was that Shang Qian didn't seem to be in love with any of the four. Although she wasn't stingy with her words of praise, it was only superficial. When night fell, they decided to continue camping. Traveling in the forest of no return at night is a very dangerous thing. After finding a suitable place to set up camp, a tent was erected. Lin Muyu helped Lu Bai to prepare dinner. After all, she wasn't the noble Emperor Qin here, but a wandering young hero. She couldn't be like Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie, who had everything she needed. After a day of traveling, everyone had arrived, but Lin Muyu had already recovered all of his divine power. The sovereign godhead was constantly absorbing the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. This kind of recovery speed was incomparable to the other 4 grades of godhead. Even the overgod godhead wouldn't have such a powerful recovery power like the sovereign godhead. It was also because of the sovereign godhead that Lin Muyu still dared to come to the celestial pole continent alone to explore. One must know that this continent was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. How many God-Emperor level experts stood proudly in a region? If one offended any one of them, one's life would probably be in danger. It was also because of this reason that Lin Muyu had always been relatively low-key. If trouble didn't come knocking on his door, he would definitely not go looking for trouble. Obviously, Shi Tianming was such a trouble. Not far away, Shi Tianming held a water bottle and knelt on the ground on one knee. Half of his body stood there strangely. He said, "Miss Shang Qian, would you like some water?" Shang Qian didn't take the water bottle. She just smiled and said, "Thank you, young Master Shi. I brought my own water." On the side, Chen Hang passed Shang Qian's water bottle to her. Shi Tianming looked resentful, but he still didn't give up. He said, "When we were in Tianji City, my father always praised you when he mentioned you." "Oh really?" "Yes, Mrs. Smart and Pure. Moreover, you have reached a certain level of attainment in martial arts cultivation. At such a young age, you have already entered the ranks of the sacred martial warrior level experts. In our Tianji Empire, which young girl can be like Miss Shang Qian?" Shi Tianming's face was full of sincerity. Unexpectedly, Si Kongyao, who was carving a branch with a knife, smiled and said intentionally or unintentionally, "I'm 2 years younger than Sister Shang Qian. I'm a sacred martial venerable with the cultivation of the 27th Grotto Heaven realm. Is there a problem?" Shang Qian chuckled. Shi Tianming was rebuffed, but he couldn't blame Si Kongyao. After all, Si Kongyao's beauty was not inferior to Shang Qian's at all. It was just that her background was too powerful. She was the beloved daughter of the continent's #1 expert, Si Kongming. She had extraordinary talent and was already one of the strongest sacred martial venerables in the empire at such a young age. Who dared to pursue her? It was also because she was too outstanding that Si Kongyao seemed to be alone. Although she was proud and arrogant and didn't want to marry these ordinary people in the celestial greatness continent, it was a girl's nature to enjoy the feeling of being pursued. In particular, outstanding girls needed to be protected and pursued even more. In the end, no one was pursuing Si Kongyao now, which made her feel very lonely in the bottom of her heart. Thinking of this, Si Kongyao glanced at Lin Muyu beside her. However, Lin Muyu scooped a spoonful of soup and tasted it. She frowned and said, "It's salty. Lini, do we not need to pay for our salt? You wastrel." Lu Bai grinned and said, "How can I completely control the amount of salt in such a big pot? You're awesome. If you're not convinced, you can cook it for me." "No, I'm convinced." Lin Muyu put her arm around Lu Bai's shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't be so stingy. I just said a few words and you're already challenging me. You're too fragile. How can you cultivate to the level of a sacred martial warrior with such a state of mind?" Lu Bai touched his nose with a resentful expression. Si Kongyao couldn't help but chuckle. It seemed that it was impossible for this guy to pursue her. In fact, Si Kongyao felt that even if she chased after him, this guy might not buy it. This crazy handsome man was simply unfathomable. When she thought of this, Si Kongyao could only sigh. She really had a hard life as a beauty. After dinner, Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie went to the mountain ridge to compare martial arts. As for Lin Muyu, she found a tree nearby and sat on the trunk to receive the starlight. She practiced the spirit refinement art and the art of stars at the same time. The art of stars was the most difficult martial arts to practice. Even with Lin Muyu's talent, she only reached the 7th layer after 10 years of practice. As for the next 2 layers, she still couldn't get a glimpse of them. Now that even Lulu had disappeared, it seemed impossible to practice it quickly. The spiritual energy in her chi si was still in a saturated state. This also meant that she couldn't increase her cultivation by refining demon spirit stones today. Lin Muyu wasn't in a hurry. She continued to use the spirit refinement art to refine the energy in her chi si, trying to break through to the 23rd layer of heavenly passage. Si Kongyao didn't seem to want to stay in the tent. She sat on a rock not far from Lin Muyu and cultivated the ice profound art. Her body was surrounded by ice energy. This girl was indeed talented. It was really not easy for her to have this kind of advancement with just a heavenly Dao lattice. However, her background was really too big. In the future, Sikong Ming would most likely help her cultivate the caste Immortal lattice. After an unknown amount of time, the light of a torch suddenly flickered in the distance. In the distance, the neighing of a war horse could be heard. What's wrong? Si Kongyao opened her beautiful eyes and looked into the distance. Lin Muyu also opened her eyes in alarm. On the hillside, Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie, who were sitting on the ground, stood up at the same time and looked in the direction of the approaching people. There were a total of 3 torches, 3 people and 3 horses. They were all male. They were wearing shabby armor and dressed like mercenaries. "For you, don't come near." Zhuang Xiaoyu's voice was extremely penetrating, like a divine oracle. In the light of the torches, a middle-aged mercenary with a mustache said respectfully, "Young master, we were attacked by a pack of hunting wolves and lost 5 of our companions. Now we have wandered here. Please forgive us, young master. Just give us a few brothers some food." "You want food?" Zhuang Xiaoyu raised his sword-like eyebrows. "How would I know who you are? Get lost immediately. Otherwise, I will kill you." Chapter 758. The corner of Lin Muyu's mouth rose as she lightly said, "Big trouble has finally found its way to our doorstep." "What do you mean?" Si Kongyao stood up and leaped to Lin Muyu's side. "These few people aren't simple. Isn't it just a few mercenaries?" Si Kongyao's face was filled with confusion. Lin Muyu smiled. "They aren't as simple as mercenaries." As she spoke, Lin Muyu leaped forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie on the hillside. She said, "Young Master Zhuang, be careful. These 3 people aren't good people. Or rather, they aren't humans." "What do you mean?" Zhuang Xiaoyu's body trembled as he furrowed his brows and said, "Don't try to scare people. Could it be that young Master Zhuang doesn't know that high-rank demon spirits can transform into human form?" Lin Muyu lightly said, "You're saying that these 3 people are high-rank demon spirits that have transformed?" Zhuang Xiaoyu was dumbfounded. In terms of strength, he might not be inferior to Lin Muyu by too much. However, in terms of experience, he was left behind by at least 10 streets. "This young master, you can't simply accuse us." The mustached mercenary pointed his finger and said, "We're all humans, how could we be demon spirits? You must want to kill us and steal our horses, right?" Lin Muyu lightly smiled. "Since you guys don't want to admit it, then I'll expose your tricks. Let me ask you, since these are your horses, why are they so restless?" "The horses were frightened by you guys. Even so, there are bloodstains on your sleeves. But you rolled up your sleeves and there isn't a single wound on your arm. So how do you explain the bloodstains on your sleeves? If I'm not wrong, it should be that the owner of the clothes had his arm chopped off by you, and his clothes were stolen by you, right?" "Don't slander us. Is that so? We'll know once we try." Lin Muyu opened her hand, and a golden 7 luminaries holy gourd appeared in her palm. Suddenly, gourd vines shot out from the ground and tied up the legs of the 3 mercenaries. There were sharp thorns on the gourd vines, which directly pierced into the skin, but there was no bleeding. This could only mean that there was no flesh under the skin, only a hard shell. "Brat, The mustached mercenary revealed a sinister smile. He lifted his hand and tore open his face. Under the skin was a terrifying demon spirit's face. He laughed evilly and said, "Even if you've seen through us, you humans who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth still have to die. I'll use your flesh and blood to pay tribute to the demon spirits that died under your blades." Demon King. Zhuang Xiaoyu was shocked. That's right, this demon spirit covered in shell was a Demon King rank demon spirit. There were only 2 colors on its neck, black and white, which was very eye-catching. At the same time, the 2 mercenaries behind him also took off their human skin and transformed into their original demon spirit form. They were 2 stooped monsters with tongues that were nearly half a meter long. One of them stared at Shang Qian and Si Kongyao in the distance and said, "There are actually 2 such beautiful girls. That's great. After we've dealt with the hindrance, I'll have a good time with these 2 girls." These 2 demon spirits had the strength of a demon venerable, and there were 3 colors on their necks. Sure enough, they've encountered big trouble. 3 high-level demon spirits that can transform into human form at once. They're practically a team. Dang. Lin Muyu's ice origin sword was already unsheathed. She lightly said, "Young Master Zhuang, how do we split them?" "Simple." Zhuang Xiaoyu licked his lips. His eyes were filled with battle intent as he smiled and said, "Leave this demon king to me. You and young master will each kill a demon venerable. How about it?" "Are you sure you can stop this demon king?" Lin Muyu smiled faintly. "Don't worry, I'll do my best." Zhuang Xiaoyu's eyes were filled with confidence. Bai Mingjie took a deep breath. Behind everyone, Chen Hang's eyes were golden. He was ready to take action at any time, as if he was facing a great enemy. After all, the 2 people in front of him were the son of the great minister of Premier and the son of a king. If either of them made a mistake, he wouldn't be able to escape the investigation. However, all this was secondary. Protecting Shang Qian's safety was the most important. In the whistling sound, the Demon King fiercely pounced over. Its claws were like iron pincers as it grabbed Zhuang Xiaoyu's arms. The 2 turned into a ball of flames and fell into the valley behind them. They crashed into countless trees and even left a trail of fire on the ground. The shockwaves from the fight echoed in the forest. This was not a spar, but a life-and-death battle. "Kid, stop looking, your opponent is me." In front of him, the demon venerable with blood-red eyes laughed cruelly. In his eyes, Lin Muyu was already a dead person. "I know." Lin Muyu responded. In the next moment he disappeared from the spot. Falling star steps allowed him to appear in front of the demon venerable like a beam of light. His left fist was infused with the power of chaos of the common life as he punched towards the demon venerable's abdomen. A deep blue light blossomed. The punch landed on the demon venerable's protective aura. Although it did not cause any damage, it forced the demon venerable back 10 meters. When it roared cruelly and raised its pair of blade-like arms, a ray of light fell from the sky. It was Lin Muyu's attack with the ice origin sword. Jade Snow Frost. The second attack caused ice shards to dance wildly. The Jade Snow Frost almost froze everything in the surroundings. This attack froze the demon venerable's arms into ice. Lin Muyu raised his leg and heavily kicked out. 2 luminaries' demonic dance. Arg! The demon venerable actually let out a miserable howl. Its body flew like a cannonball and crashed into the mountain, causing the entire mountain to tremble. At this moment, Si Kongyao and Shang Qian were already watching with their mouths wide open. Lin Muyu's battle was much more interesting than Zhuang Xiaoyu's. Lin Muyu was practically crushing the pitiful demon venerable. On the other side, Bai Mingjie swung his long sword and fought with another demon venerable. The demon venerable was the same species as the demon venerable that Lin Muyu was fighting with. It swung its blade-like arms to block Bai Mingjie's slashes and thrusts. It laughed cruelly and the aura around it became denser and denser. In the blink of an eye, Bai Mingjie's shoulder was injured again. As a God State expert, he actually lost to a demon venerable. "Go to hell, Tresh." The demon venerable roared and suddenly leaped forward. It wrapped its legs around Bai Mingjie's waist and opened its blade-like arms to grab Bai Mingjie's arms. It opened its bloody mouth and 2 rows of sharp teeth bit down. Bastard! Bai Mingjie roared furiously. The law of fire and divine power in his body was raised to the peak. He forcefully shook off the opponent's grip and kicked upwards with his right leg. Bang! The demon venerable suffered a blow, but Bai Mingjie was the one who suffered the pain. This kick didn't send the demon venerable's head flying, but it broke a few bones in his leg. The crisp sound was very clear. Arg! Bai Mingjie retreated in pain and even lost the ability to fly. Huff! The demon venerable charged over with a sharp expression. Its blade-like arms cut open Bai Mingjie's leg, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Young Lord, back off. A figure appeared in the sky. It was Chen Hang. He finally made his move. The fist wind was biting cold. A heavy punch landed on the demon venerable's neck. A total of 30 heavenly layers. The demon venerable was knocked away. Chen Hang didn't let it go. He kept kicking and punching. Golden lights burst out in the forest. Each of his punches contained 30 heavenly layers divine power. The demon venerable didn't even have the strength to retaliate. Finally, after a cracking sound, Chen Hang forcibly took the demon venerable's head from its body. Boom! A punch filled with 8 elements, 8 desolation power smashed the demon venerable into the mountain. The 5 elements, 8 desolation power was not something that the demon venerable could withstand. Moreover, Lin Muyu used 80% of her power in this 5 elements, 8 desolation. The ice origin sword shone brightly and pierced through the demon venerable's throat, ending the demon venerable's life. Lin Muyu was breathing heavily. In order to make the demon venerable unable to retaliate, this series of attacks had consumed a lot of her stamina and divine power. After all, this was a demon venerable, not a low-grade demon spirit. She carried the demon venerable's corpse out of the cave. After taking out the demon venerable's spirit stone, she threw the corpse next to the demon venerable's corpse next to Chen Hang. She looked not far away and saw Bai Mingjie lying on the ground. Lin Muyu couldn't help sighing in her heart. With this kind of strength, he actually dared to call himself the #1 genius of the royal family. It seems like the Bai Ming family doesn't have many geniuses. Actually, thinking about it carefully, it's normal. Peerless experts like Bai Mingyuan and Bai Minghuan only appear once every few thousand years. And every generation only lasts for a few decades. Looking at the demon venerable's corpse, Chen Hang was a little stunned and asked, "You already killed it? What else?" Lin Muyu faintly smiled, pretended to be very tired and said, "But I don't have much power left." Chen Hang revealed a gratified smile. If this kid can still maintain enough power after killing a demon venerable, then this person is too terrifying. He's basically comparable to any Dragon Rider's sacred martial king in the Tianji Dragon Rider group. Shang Qian raised her head to look at Lin Muyu, who was standing in the sky. Her eyes flickered and her brows were slightly knitted. No one knew what she was thinking. On the other hand, Si Kongyao's expression was a lot simpler. She gave Lin Muyu a thumbs up. "Where's young Master Zhuang?" "He's still fighting." Shang Qian looked at the valley not far away. Zhuang Xiaoyu's opponent was a demon king. That's a powerful existence that's second only to the demon emperor in the demon spirit clan. It can't be underestimated. Everyone immediately flew over. Zhuang Xiaoyu might need their help to kill that demon king. Boom! Before they even got close, a small hill dozens of meters in front of them instantly crumbled. The wind power howled. How powerful was this power? In the wind, Zhuang Xiaoyu's crown had already been lost. His long hair danced in the wind. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness. The long sword in his hand had actually broken into 2, but his divine power was still condensed on the broken sword. On the other hand, the Demon King's aura was extremely domineering. Although there were a few sword wounds on his body, they weren't fatal. Demon power lingered around him, and his battle intent surged. With a roar, he charged at Zhuang Xiaoyu again. Chapter 759. Boom! A huge pillar of flames soared into the sky. The Demon King's scorching attack actually burned the rocks in the mountain range into powder. Zhuang Xiaoyu, who was wrapped in a divine power wall, was lucky enough to survive. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and the long sword in his hand had already been shattered. He could only use his divine power to heavily smash the Demon King's lower jaw with the purple gold fan. You must die for trespassing on the Demon Spirit Clan's territory. The Demon King's lower jaw had already been broken into two by the purple gold fan. Blood flowed out, but it still roared ferociously. Flame energy surged out of its body, instantly forming a flaming shockwave. "Be careful!" Si Kongyao exclaimed. She opened her palm and condensed ice mystic arts to protect Shang Qian. Lin Muyu raised her hand and slashed out with her sword. The cold sword light split apart the shockwaves and formed a wall, protecting Shi Tianming and Lu Bai behind her. Chen Hang looked at Lin Muyu's imposing manner and couldn't help but frown. This kid is not simple. Should we help young Master Zhuang? Shang Qian said worriedly. Si Kongyao's bright eyes stared at the battle between Zhuang Xiaoyu and the Demon King. She slowly shook her head and said, "No need. Big brother Xiaoyu hasn't shown his true strength. This Demon King is definitely not his match. Furthermore, to a sacred martial venerable, self-confidence and dignity are more important than life. If we help him, it will be the same as insulting Big brother Xiaoyu." But Shang Qian still wanted to say something, but Chen Hang, who was beside her, signaled her to stop. Just like what Si Kongyao had said, true experts all had almost distorted self-esteem. Especially in this kind of situation where they were evenly matched, they definitely couldn't help him. Otherwise, it would be a great insult. Swish, swish, swish. The purple gold fan constantly clashed with the Demon King's sharp claws, emitting rays of golden divine power. Zhuang Xiaoyu raised his power to the limit. The purple gold fan completely opened with a schwa sound, and a small ball appeared around Zhuang Xiaoyu. It was actually a spirit pearl of law. Lin Muyu was slightly startled. She had never imagined that Zhuang Xiaoyu's godhead would actually be a forged immortal godhead. This spirit pearl of law could increase his strength by at least half. It looked like this Demon King was going to die a miserable death at the hands of a Saint Martial Venerable. Hua hua! The purple gold fan swept out with a gust of wind. This time, the characteristics of the power were completely different. Moreover, the control over the laws of wind had been greatly increased. The destructive power contained in the wind was completely different from before. "They're finally here." Si Kongyao smiled and said, "The Zhuang family's 4 styles of wind god, the first style, piercing gale." Amidst Si Kongyao's laughter, the Demon King let out a miserable howl. After its body was baptized by the gale, its scales flew off and blood gushed out. In an instant, it had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. Zhuang Xiaoyu's eyes were cold, and there was still a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He flipped the purple gold fan again, and his figure was like a fallen leaf in the wind. He floated with the wind, but it was in accordance with the laws of nature. When the purple gold fan fanned again, the power of the wind seemed to be compressed, condensing into the image of a wild green dragon that pounced straight towards the Demon King. 2 styles of wind god, tornado coiling dragon. Si Kongyao's eyes were filled with excitement. Clearly, Si Kongyao's talent was extraordinary, and her attainments in martial arts far surpassed her peers. So much so that when she saw Zhuang Xiaoyu's 4 styles of wind god, she couldn't help but be excited. If it wasn't for the fact that the 4 styles of wind god was not a secret technique that was passed down to outsiders, Si Kongyao would have already learned it. Lin Muyu was silent. If she had used the 7 glorious stars transformation just now, she was afraid that with Si Kongyao's temperament, she would definitely pester her to learn it. As the tornado coiling dragon devoured, a kacha sound rang out, and the Demon King's arm broke into a cloud of blood. It was clear to see how powerful the tornado coiling dragon was. The Demon King's body was extremely tough, and even the stellar sword could not cut it. Thinking of the stellar sword, Lin Muyu couldn't help but be silent. She didn't know where Acatosaurus had sent the stellar sword to. The sword spirit of that sword was the sword elder. However, Acatosaurus had also grown up, so it must have had its own reasons for doing this. Roar, roar, roar. The Demon King was already one-armed, but it still roared at the sky. The flames swelled, as if its body would explode at any moment. At this moment, Zhuang Xiaoyu's handsome face appeared even calmer. Under the illumination of the flames, his eyes were filled with confidence. With a light wave of the purple gold fan, another storm flew up. It's the third form, tearing heaven and splitting earth. Si Kongyao's small mouth gaped open as she looked at the surging storm in the valley. This was not a power that a mortal should have. If Zhuang Xiaoyu was just a bit stronger, he would be able to destroy the entire mountain range with a single strike. The Demon King's body was bathed in flames, and it attacked the wind blades. Zhuang Xiaoyu didn't expect the Demon King to still have the strength to fight back. The Demon King's sharp horn was pointed straight at his chest, and it was about to pierce through his heart. Bastard! Zhuang Xiaoyu raised his hand and slashed down with the purple gold fan. With a kacha sound, the sharp horn was broken. However, half of the Demon King's horn still pierced into his chest. The sound of bones breaking rang out, and a few of his ribs were broken. In a miserable state, Zhuang Xiaoyu activated his ability to shatter the void and directly jumped tens of meters away. With a wave of the purple gold fan, he used the fourth form, Dimensional Slash. As soon as she saw the purple dimensional wind blade, Lin Muyu felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. That's right, Feng Jixing's dimensional wind blade was the same. It seemed that Zhuang Xiaoyu's understanding of the law of wind had already reached the same level as Feng Jixing. No wonder he was known as the #1 person among the younger generation of the Tianji Empire. There was no doubt about his strength. Roar, roar, roar. The Demon King had already used up the last of its life force in this attack. How could it still withstand the impact of the dimensional wind blade? In an instant, its limbs were disintegrated into a pile of minced meat. Only the Demon King grade Demon Spirit Stone was glowing with a dazzling luster amidst the minced meat. Brother Xiaoyu, are you all right? Si Kongyao leaped forward and supported Zhuang Xiaoyu's back with one hand so that he wouldn't fall into the mud. When she saw Zhuang Xiaoyu's face, she couldn't help but be shocked. At this moment, Zhuang Xiaoyu's face was pale and big beads of sweat kept flowing down. In order to kill this Demon King, he had already used up all his strength and even started to overdraft his life force. Yao, I'm all right. Take out the Demon Spirit Stone. Zhuang Xiaoyu closed his eyes and groaned painfully. The only thing he didn't forget was the Demon Spirit Stone. It seemed that he was very concerned about the result of the competition. Indeed, Si Kongyao's character was too wild. An ordinary man couldn't control her at all. Zhuang Xiaoyu had accompanied Si Kongyao for so many years, but he still couldn't win her heart. So, if he won the competition and gained Shang Qian's favor, then they would be a perfect match. If the Zhuang clan and the Shang clan joined forces, half of the imperial capital Tianji City would be under the control of the two clans. You're still thinking about the Demon Spirit Stone. Si Kongyao pouted and took the Demon Spirit Stone through the air. She stuffed it into Zhuang Xiaoyu's bag and said, "Are you satisfied now? You can go and heal your injuries." Then, Zhuang Xiaoyu's voice was weak and he actually fainted in the blink of an eye. Brother Xiaoyu. Brother Xiaoyu. Si Kongyao was anxious. She turned around and looked at Lin Muyu and said, "He's dead. Woo, he's dead." Lin Muyu's mind was filled with a million, what the F***ck. She was speechless and said, "He's not dead, right? He's still breathing. Hurry and take him to rest. He needs rest now." Zhuang Xiaoyu's cultivation is so strong, his body's ability to recover on its own is very strong. He just needs some rest and he'll wake up. Oh. Si Kongyao tested his breathing and said, "Lu Bai, Shi Tianming, I'll have to trouble you guys to help young Master Zhuang into the tent." Shi Tianming was resentful, but he couldn't ignore Si Kongyao's words. After all, he had followed her to train. Now that two of the three experts were injured, he couldn't just sit and do nothing. Thus, he and Lu Bai helped Zhuang Xiaoyu to rest, one on the left and the other on the right. Outside the tent, the sky was gradually brightening. Another dawn was about to arrive. Lin Muyu moved the branches to keep the bonfire from extinguishing. Hugging the Ice Origin sword, his handsome figure looked indescribably lonely under the light of the fire. Young hero. A sweet voice sounded behind him. It was Shang Qian. She sat opposite Lin Muyu with her arms around her knees and said, "You're still not sleeping?" "I can't sleep. Why isn't Miss Shang Qian sleeping either?" He continued to move the firewood. "I can't sleep either." Shang Qian frowned and said, "There are 8 of us. Young hero you, Zhuang Xiaoyu, and young Prince Baiming have the highest cultivation. Now that young Master Zhuang and young Prince Baiming are both heavily injured, I'm afraid we won't be able to continue our journey in 2 or 3 days. We need to stay here for a few more days. I'm afraid we'll have to rely on you to guard the next few days." Lin Muyu's words were very indifferent. Shang Qian was a very thoughtful woman. With just a few words, she managed to bring Qin Hang, a sacred martial king-level expert. In reality, the strongest person in this group should be the taciturn Qin Hang. As for Zhuang Xiaoyu, he had enough strength, but his ability to fight and kill in battle was much inferior. "Young hero, can I ask you a question?" Shang Qian asked. "Yes, miss, please ask." The flickering fire shone on his face. His facial features were distinct and filled with determination. "What was the martial art you used to kill that demon lord?" Shang Qian paused and said, "I could feel that kind of tyrannical and destructive power. Even Zhuang Xiaoyu's divine wind extremity pales in comparison. Although Shang Qian's cultivation is low, I have some understanding of the martial arts of the various sects in the celestial pole continent. Young hero's martial arts are different from the mysteriousness of the Tianji sect, the tyranny of the Thunderflame sect, and the gentleness of the divine extremity sect. If I may be so bold as to ask, which sect did young hero hail from?" Lin Muyu was silent for a few seconds. Looking at the flickering flames, she said, "I followed my master and only cultivated my mental state. As for the specific martial arts, I created them myself. I don't belong to any sect, so there's no need for Miss to continue asking." Shang Qian was given the cold shoulder, so she didn't continue to ask. At this moment, Shi Tianming's attentive figure appeared and said, "It's going to be dawn soon. I wonder what kind of soup Miss Shang Qian would like to drink? There are quite a lot of wild vegetables and fruits in the deep mountains. You don't have to worry about not having ingredients for the pot. As long as Miss says what you want to eat, I'll naturally find it." Shang Qian's expression was lonely. "Anything is fine." After saying that, Shang Qian turned around and went in the direction of the tent. Shi Tianming was stunned. "Young hero, did I do something wrong? Why is Miss Shang Qian always so cold to me?" "I don't know either." Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "Perhaps young Master Shi should also learn to give up. Some things can't be forced." "No, I must get her," Shi Tianming said proudly. It was unknown where his confidence came from. Chapter 760. The sky was bright, but the entire jungle seemed to be in a deep slumber. Only the chirping of birds could let people know that a new day had arrived. Zhuang Xiaoyu and Baiming once again fell into a deep slumber after taking the medicine. Even a god's body would need a few days of rest to heal, let alone a broken sternum. They would probably need at least 3 to 5 days to fight again. A faint wisp of green smoke rose. There was no one around and it was quiet. Lin Muyu went back to the tent to rest after teaching Lu Bai some mental cultivation methods. She calmed her mind, and her mind was as still as a mirror. The divine power in her energy sea circulated automatically. Lin Muyu didn't need to use the spirit cultivation art anymore, and the art could refine the supreme divine power in her body on its own. About 30 meters away, Shang Qian's tent was very quiet. Inside the tent, Shang Qian was holding a cup of tea and sitting there quietly like a virgin. Chen Hang sat cross-legged beside her with a serious expression. "Uncle Chen, what do you think of that kid?" "Which kid, Zhuang Xiaoyu?" Chen Hang asked with a smile. "How could it be?" Shang Qian shook her head. "Although Zhuang Xiaoyu's talent is extraordinary and his strength is astonishing, he is arrogant and prideful. His mental state and cultivation are seriously incompatible with his own cultivation. He is destined to suffer. I'm talking about someone else, someone whose mental state and strength are unfathomable. You're talking about the kid that Miss C. Kong Yao favors, right? That's right, that's him. Uncle Chen has seen countless people. What do you think of this person? Chen Hang took a deep breath. Miss, forgive me for being blunt. This person's mental state and cultivation are above Zhuang Xiaoyu's. Above Zhuang Xiaoyu? Shang Qian was a little shocked. Zhuang Xiaoyu is known as the number one among the younger generation in the Tianji Empire. So what if he's the number one? There's always someone better than you out there. Chen Hang said confidently, I saw the whole process of that kid killing the demon venerable. He only used 70% of his strength at most to kill a demon venerable. Moreover, his moves were exquisite and domineering. More importantly, he didn't just rely on his strength. Oh, what do you mean? I don't know if First Miss noticed, but when that kid was fighting with the demon venerable, the timing and angle of his attack happened to be when the demon venerable was at its weakest. It's not that his strength is absolutely above the demon venerable, but his wisdom is far above the demon venerable, and he knows how to attack the demon venerable's weakness. This is also the reason why he could easily kill the demon venerable, and Bai Mingjie was seriously injured. Who on earth is he? Shang Qian's beautiful brows knit together lightly as she said, could it be someone from the Heavenju Empire or the Darkstone Empire? In my memory, there's no such person in the Tianji Empire or the Tianji sect. Anything is possible. Chen Hang narrowed his eyes. In short, this is a person that we shouldn't lose if we can rope in. Otherwise, Miss C. Kong Yao wouldn't treat him with such respect. That little girl Yao, Shang Qian pouted, I think she likes that guy, or else she wouldn't be so abnormal. Chen Hang couldn't help but laugh. That kid is hidden deep and handsome, of course he can win the hearts of girls. First Miss, don't tell me you don't like him at all? Shang Qian smiled, and her eyes were filled with endless arrogance. She said, love between a man and a woman is but a mortal matter. What I want is to control everything, not give up everything for one person. Chen Hang had a look of admiration. This is Shang Sun's daughter. This is the granddaughter of the Saint Martial God, Lord Zhang Cheng. This is the kind of breadth of mind and spirit we need. First Miss will not lose to any man in the future, and Lord Zhang Cheng's legacy is destined to be inherited by you. Uncle Chen, you don't have to flatter me. The corner of Shang Qian's mouth curled up, and her beautiful smile was so captivating. She said, my age is similar to Yao's, but my strength is far inferior to hers. I'm afraid that in terms of martial arts cultivation, I will never be able to catch up to Yao's realm in my lifetime. However, the future isn't decided by one's fists. Yes. Chen Hang had a smile on his face. Just as First Miss said, this continent is going to change soon. The spiritual mountains of the immortal realm are colliding, and the planes are merging. Now, the world is no longer just the celestial pole mainland. There is also the Shattered Cauldron realm mainland across the sea. His Majesty sent a secret letter half a month ago, and all people above the level of Saint Martial Warrior have to obey orders and join the army of the Shattered Cauldron realm to serve the country. Shang Qian smiled playfully and said, this is why I said that the future isn't decided by strength alone. We know very little about the Shattered Cauldron realm. If we use our weapons without authorization, I'm afraid that we won't necessarily get a vast territory, but the people of the Tianji Empire will be plunged into misery and suffering. If His Majesty wants to defeat the Qin Empire of the Shattered Cauldron realm by himself, I'm afraid it's like a fool's dream. Chen Hang said faintly, His Majesty the Saint Emperor is wise. He has long decided to send only half of the army of the Tianji Empire to the Shattered Cauldron realm, and the rest of the army will stay at the border to prevent possible sneak attacks from Tianju and Heisher. I heard that the Qin Empire has two princes who are skilled in both civil and military affairs. One is Lin Muyu, and the other is Feng Jixing. Both of them are appointed ministers to manage the government affairs. Not only are they brave and good at fighting, but they are also resourceful. Shang Qian's eyes flickered, and she said, I hope Our Majesty doesn't underestimate his opponents. Otherwise, he will definitely suffer under the attack of Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing. Chen Hang nodded and said, if the Tianji Empire really launches an expedition, do you think Lord Zhang Cheng will take the lead? I don't know. Grandpa hasn't paid much attention to military affairs recently, and he's old, so he doesn't want to get involved in disputes anymore. I guess if they really launch an expedition, the most likely one to take the lead would still be Marshal Bai Minghuan. He is in the prime of his life, and his military achievements are outstanding. If he can defeat the Qin Empire and unify the Shattered Cauldron realm, he will be the only famous general in the Tianji Empire for tens of thousands of years. As she spoke, Shang Qian smiled and said, which of these senior generals doesn't covet the empty title of a famous general? Yes, but it's a pity that you're a girl. Otherwise, you would at least be a candidate for a general. Humph, there will be a chance. I'll wait for the day when His Majesty summons me. Thousands of miles away, a fierce battle was taking place on the snowy Eight Wasteland. The violent sound of horse hooves shook the entire snowfield. The cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp, dressed in gray and white armor, held up the purple flag and lances, and confronted the last elite troops of the devil race. Dong, dong, dong. The war drums sounded hurriedly. Nearly 100,000 elite cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp turned over and mounted their horses together. Holding his sword, Wei Chou spurred his horse to gallop in front of the formation. He raised his sword high and shouted, for the female Empress Qin Yin. For the Qin Empire. For the sake of our homeland no longer being trampled by demons, for the prosperity of the earth, and for the peace of the people, we must win this battle. Everyone raised their weapons and let out a roar that shook the heavens. We will win. Victory! Victory! Wei Chou slowly turned his horse around and stood at the forefront of the whole formation. Staring at the formation of the devil race in the distance with his clear eyes, he raised his sword high and shouted, "Attack!" The formation moved slowly, and soon entered a galloping speed, shaking the heaven and earth. In the devil race's camp, a simple earthen wall was made into an indestructible city by ice and snow. On the wall, the man in a golden robe was the emperor of the devil race, Demon Emperor Feng Yuan. Beside him were two marshals of the devil race. One was Qian Feng, and the other was Shen Baichuan. Below the city, countless black cavalrymen were the last trump card of the devil race, the 100,000 elite cavalrymen of the Nannan family, a cavalry regiment composed of high-level demons. It was said that even the armored demon army was no match for them. Can we win? Demon Emperor's eyes were still full of vicissitudes, and he said, if we lose this battle, there will be no place for our god race to live on the whole continent. We will lose our home and everything. Your Majesty, please don't worry. Shen Baichuan cupped his fists and said, the 100,000 cavalrymen of the Nannan family are the strongest in the world. They will not lose to the Dragon Courage army. No matter how good Wei Chou is, he can't make up for the gap in military strength and fighting strength. Qian Feng, who was wearing a silver marshal's robe, was silent. He just reached out and brushed off the thick layer of snow on his shoulder. Marshal Qian Feng, what do you think? Feng Yuan asked indifferently. Qian Feng nodded and said, Father, Wei Chou's strategy was inherited from Lin Muyu, and he has always been experienced in military strategy. Moreover, since the battle at the Tongtian Gorge, Wei Chou has always advocated the strategy of advancing step by step and never taking risks. But now, the Longdan army camp has actually put up a formation to fight against our cavalry. I think it's not that simple. Marshal Qian Feng is worrying too much, Shen Baichuan smiled coldly. Although the soldiers of the Longdan army camp are battle-hardened, they are still humans after all. Their physique and strength cannot be compared to the Protoss. Moreover, we are using the fine horses of the northern desert, while the Longdan army camp uses mostly mixed warhorses. Their leg strength and charging power are far inferior. Moreover, Shen Baichuan's eyes turned cold. Our Winged Men Legion has been closely monitoring from the sky. Wei Chou did not bring a single magic crystal cannon out of the Tongtian Gorge. As long as he does not bring any magic crystal cannon, what is there to fear from the Longdan army camp? I think Marshal Qianfeng has been scared out of his wits by the Longdan army camp. I hope so. Qianfeng did not argue. He said, Father, I have arranged for guards and carriages to escort His Highness Ning and Her Highness Jing out of the 8 wastelands. Once the Protoss are defeated, we will retreat to the north and enter the wildlands to find a new home. Feng Yuan's expression was lonely. He said somewhat impatiently, All right, just arrange it. Amidst the sound of hooves, the 2 strongest cavalry regiments in the Shattered Cauldron realm were less than 100 meters away from each other. Wei Chou suddenly raised a blue flag and shouted, Magic Crystal Crossbow, fire. The elite soldiers in the front row of the Longdan army camp each took out a crossbow from a black cloth bag on the back of their horses. The crossbow was made of pure steel, but it was very different from ordinary crossbow bolts. The arrow they used was actually an arrow with a light blue luster. It was a crossbow bolt that was filled with magic crystals. There was also a small crystal detonator tied to the center of the arrow. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The magic crystal crossbow bolts flew with the wind. In the blink of an eye, there were continuous explosions. The power of the magic crystal crossbow bolts could only reach 3 to 5 meters away. However, when scattered, the power produced by the explosion of thousands of magic crystal crossbow bolts was destructive. Small mushroom clouds soared into the sky. The 100,000 devil cavalry were defeated even before the battle began. Chapter 761. In less than 2 hours, the mountain-like formation of 100,000 cavalrymen began to crumble. The sounds of explosions from the small magic crystal crossbows rang out one after another. The shockwaves from the explosions caused the air currents to become chaotic. Strong gales blew across the snowy plains. Looking down, the ground had become a mess in the blink of an eye. Charred craters could be seen all over the battlefield. Ha! On the city wall, Qianfeng suddenly laughed. He looked up at the sky and his eyes were filled with endless sorrow and anger. Everyone thought that the key person in this war was Qin Wang Lin Muyu or Duke Wei Chou. However, it was not the case. The real key person was the mysterious Qin Xiling who was hiding behind the human army. The small magic crystal crossbows had crushed the last hope of the demon race's counterattack. How could this be? How could this be? The confidence and calmness on Shen Baichuan's face had long been swept away. He knelt on the ground with a blank face. What kind of weapon is that? Why is it so powerful? Send out the giant flying snakes. Qianfeng gently waved his arm and said, Send out 5 giant flying snakes to resist the attack of the Longdan army camp. Order the cavalrymen to retreat. We can't let the last army of the god race be buried in the 8 wastelands. If we do so, we will be the last sinners of the god race. Father, what do you think? Demon Emperor Feng Yuan's face was calm as if he had already guessed that this would be the result. In fact, it was indeed so. Wei Chou had always been calm when it came to using the magic crystal crossbows. He would not take the initiative to attack without full confidence. This time, Wei Chou used the magic crystal crossbows to draw a tragic end to this war. The appearance of the magic crystal crossbows was simply a fatal blow to the demon race. Woo! The horn sounded. The Zhongnan cavalrymen who were fighting on the battlefield turned around and retreated one after another. At the same time, the roar of giant beasts came from the sky. 5 giant flying snakes appeared in the sky with their huge bodies trembling. This was not the first time they saw these giant beasts. Wei Chou raised his eyebrows as he looked at the sky and said, In this battle, we must do our best to kill off the last of the demon race's forces. Aim the magic crystal crossbows at the sky. Everyone spread out and attacked the giant flying snakes. General Sun, you and Ouyang Yan will lead the main force to attack from the right flank and seize the southern ancient city. Alright. The horses' hooves were echoing. The bugle horn was sounding. The flying snake was howling. The flames were burning. The snowfield was melting. No one would have thought that the last battle between the human race and the demon race would have such a great disparity in strength. In this battle, the demon race had been completely defeated under the command of Shen Baichuan. From now on, it would be difficult for the demon race to compete with the Qin Empire. Even the last capital for a comeback was almost gone. As long as the cavalry of Situsun caught up with them, the tens of thousands of Zhongnan cavalrymen would be annihilated. There was a cloud of smoke in the sky, which dyed the whole sky red. Under the sky, several giant flying snakes were roaring and wreaking havoc. The huge force field in their bodies was crazily absorbing everything on the ground, grinding the snow and the soldiers into minced meat. At the same time, the Longdan army camp's magic crystal crossbows were also shooting intensively. The white diamond arrowheads pierced into the scales of the flying snakes, and the magic crystal in the middle began to explode. For a time, the bodies of the flying snakes trembled violently. Although they had strong vitality, they could not withstand such continuous attacks. Soon after, the giant flying snakes were already wounded and tottering. It was only a matter of time before they died. When the 5 giant flying snakes fell to the ground with flames all over their bodies, the elite cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp rushed to the southern ancient city like a whirlwind. This Zhongnan city was already the last land of the demon race on the mainland. Kill! The earth-shaking roar reverberated on the snowfield. The outcome had been decided. The winner was the king, and the loser was the thief. Just a small demonic crystal had actually reversed the fate of both the human race and the demon race. The withdrawal of the demon race also helped the Great Qin Empire to complete its hegemony in the Shattered Cauldron realm once again. However, the Empire Master was nowhere to be found. Everyone was waiting for her return, but no one knew if she was still there. The light of the setting sun penetrated through the dense leaves of the jungle, casting mottled shadows on the bodies of ugly demon beasts. This was a kind of wolf tribe, with sharp teeth exposed outside their lips. Moreover, there was more than one such demon beast in the jungle. Just this kind of wolf alone, there were more than 100 of them. Not far away, in the thorny bushes, there was a kind of humanoid monster covered with rotten flesh. It looked like a big rotten toad, but its head was in the shape of a bloated man. There were dozens of them. Further away, giants with stone awls in their hands opened their eyes wide and looked around. They often touched the back of their heads with their rough palms, looking charmingly naive. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Amidst the sound of horse hooves, a man wearing black armor and a blood-red battle robe appeared. His entire head was covered by his helmet, revealing only a pair of dark eyes. The battle horse he was riding on was actually a battle horse that had already begun to rot. It breathed out a rancid smell and seemed to be a little impatient. After a long neigh, it stomped its front hoofs. "Don't worry." The master stroked the mane of the warhorse and said, "The prey is very close. Don't worry, we will share this fat prey, ha." In the sound of footsteps, a leader carrying a long sword walked over, knelt respectfully in front of the warhorse and said, "Your Majesty, 30 miles ahead is the territory of the Shura of the Dark Moon. She killed the King Eric. According to the rules of the land of exile, she should be called the King of the Dark Moon now. We have brought all the troops in the territory, a total of more than 700 troops. Her days of being the king are over. She is not in the Black Mountain." There was a hint of sharpness in the eyes of the master, and he said, "She is already here. Order everyone to be on guard. The King of the Dark Moon may launch a sneak attack on us at any time." "What?" The leader was startled. "Your Majesty, you mean she is only one person? Does she dare to take the initiative to challenge our army?" "It seems to be the case now. She is here, and she is very close to us." "Yes, I understand." He looked into the distance, his face full of fighting spirit and a smile. The King of 100 Battles. No one knew what his real name was, but everyone in the land of exile had heard of the King of 100 Battles. This king had existed in the land of exile for nearly 100,000 years. He had won every battle and had never been defeated. No king had ever been able to gain an advantage against him. As a result, although the other kings were not inferior to the King of 100 Battles in terms of strength, no one dared to challenge his ever-victorious position. Further ahead was a barren grassland. The grass that was half a person's height seemed to provide the best cover for the battlefield. This army, which did not belong to humans, stepped into the grassland and went straight into the distance. The wolf beasts were at the forefront. They scuttled into the grass, causing the grass to rustle, just like the ripples caused by fish swimming on the surface of the water. Suddenly, one of the ripples became violent and collapsed to the ground along with a clump of wild grass. The people in the distance could not see clearly, they could only hear the wolf beast's blood-curdling screams and a spray of fresh blood. Night had already fallen. That cold light flashed and disappeared. Everyone knew that the wolf beast had been finished off by someone. Then came the second, the third, and more wolf beasts disappeared from sight. When the group of leaders under the King of 100 Battles arrived, they only saw the corpses of the wolf beasts lying in the messy grassland. They were all killed with a single blow. Their throats were slit, and their throats were pierced by a sword. Who is she? The spear in the leader's hand was trembling. She is the King of Dark Moon. The King of 100 Battles raised his head and looked into the distance. That overbearing aura disappeared in a flash. She was a person who was good at hiding her aura, and also a strong opponent. Pulling the reins, he spurred the horse and said calmly, "Everyone spread out. You must find her for me. Let her have a taste of the soft tongue of a toad." Everyone spread out, but they were not in a mess. There were 10 people in a group, and each group was equipped with a toad beast, 5 humans, 1 giant, and 3 wolf beasts. The combat team under the King of 100 Battles was completely different from the other kings. It was also because of this combat quality that his power grew in the banished land, so the other kings did not dare to challenge his position. Be careful. A leader held a spear in his hand and looked at every movement in the grass with a sharp look. Ow! The wolf beast bared its teeth and walked through the grass with a ferocious look. Suddenly, with a ow ow sound, the smell of blood filled the air. A wolf beast in front had been killed. Swoosh! In the bushes, a graceful figure swept past. Bastard, chase after her. The leader roared angrily. The giant waved his stone awl and roared as he ran on the ground, but his speed was definitely not as fast as the other 2 wolf beasts. However, when the wolf beast was chasing after the giant, a sword light suddenly swept past, and blood splattered. There were no more wolf beasts in this team. She is there, Toad, do it? The Toad Man suddenly opened his mouth at a horrifying angle, and a soft tongue flew out. Pa! It wrapped around the left leg of the girl who was running in the grass. Pull back! The soft tongue quickly retracted. The girl raised her long sword, and the blade was shining brightly. Cha! The soft tongue was cut in half. The leader was so shocked that his face turned pale. Cut off the soft tongue with one sword, how is this possible? This soft tongue is something that even an armored car can't crush. Giant, kill her for me. Roar! The giant raised his stone all high and smashed down. Pang! The soil splashed, but there was no figure. All that could be seen was a golden crystal light rising from the sky, directly hitting the giant's lower jaw. The next moment, his huge head directly exploded, and blood splattered all over the ground. Bastard! The leader's body trembled. At this moment, he felt an inexplicable fear, as if he had a premonition that his life had come to an end. Sha sha sha! The grass was covered in blood, and a young girl holding a blood-stained long sword slowly walked over. She wore a slightly short cloak on her upper body, and a coffee-colored, tight-fitting skirt on her lower body, which made her exquisite and curvaceous body look particularly alluring. This attire could not have been more simple in the banished lands, but at this moment, it was exceptionally enchanting and enchanting. The leader looked up at the girl's blood-red eyes, and his heart instantly turned cold. At this moment, he seemed to see death. Chapter 762. His throat was suddenly cut open, so much so that the leader did not even have the time to shout a warning. Within half a second, the blood gushed out and splashed on the barren grassland. He had lived in the land of exile for decades and fought his way to the position of a leader with his extraordinary cultivation. He did not expect that he would end up so easily. He did not even have the time to attack before he died under the sword of his opponent. The King of Dark Moon's strength had far exceeded the cognitive range of the leaders of the land of exile. Although the light from the celestial dragon crystal was fleeting, it still did not escape the eyes of the King of 100 Battles. He could clearly feel that the fleeting power was coming from that direction. Don't go, Dark Moon. He turned around and disappeared from the back of the horse. The next moment, he appeared in the sky above the grassland in the distance. He unsheathed his sword and slashed it down, aiming at a beautiful figure on the grassland. The light flashed. She had broken the void and escaped. Damn it! The King of 100 Battles was shocked. He quickly focused his mind to see where she was. The ground was covered with the corpses of his subordinates. He could not let this woman escape. However, a few seconds later, the King of 100 Battles realized that he was wrong. The screams of the demon beasts and leaders came from afar again. The light from the sword shredded flesh and blood. Even the powerful toad and giant could not survive a second under the sword of the King of Dark Moon. Swoosh, swoosh, the King of 100 Battles flew at the speed of a meteor. When he arrived, he saw that the ground was covered with corpses. The giant's heart was smashed, the toad was cut in half, and the bodies of the hikers and leaders were nowhere to be seen. All that was left was a puff of blood mist, as if their bodies had evaporated into thin air. What the hell is she? The King of 100 Battles roared. He actually regretted bringing so many subordinates here. He was afraid that it was a mistake to bring so many subordinates here. These leaders and hikers were no match for the King of Dark Moon. They were not even qualified to be cannon fodder. Everyone, get out of this forest. The King of 100 Battles roared. His voice traveled far. Several leaders immediately gathered and asked respectfully, King of 100 Battles, if we leave, what about you? If she can kill me, then she'll be a true king. The face of the King of 100 Battles was devoid of any color, and not even the slightest emotion could be seen. He had stayed in the banished land for too long, so much so that he had tasted the supremacy of thousands of people. He was tired of this endless life of killing, but the King of Dark Moon in front of him seemed to be opening a new window for him. Yes, Your Majesty. The group of subordinates did not disobey and quickly retreated from the grassy forest. The moon was as red as blood, and the moonlight seemed to cover the earth with a layer of blood. The King of 100 Battles held his sword and stood a few meters above the ground. He calmly said, Now there are only the two of us left. Come, let me see what you really look like, Dark Moon King. Rustle? In the grass, a pair of boots that belonged to a soldier stepped on the blood-stained grass. Above the boots was a pair of slender snow-white legs. Above the seductive absolute territory was a coffee-colored short skirt that wrapped around her beautiful buttocks. A simple white shirt with a rope on her chest was messy and chic. Her cloak was a little tattered, but it did not affect her wild and seductive beauty. You're the Dark Moon? 100 Battles murmured. They call me that, but I don't know who I am. Then I guess I'm the Dark Moon. Her voice was very pleasant, so pleasant that it did not sound like a murderous king. You know I'm coming for you? I know. Her expression was calm, and the long sword in her hand was dripping with blood. She said, I can feel that strong murderous aura, but you can't kill me. You're only slightly stronger than Eric, and I'm not who I was 10 days ago. Is that so? Looking at her skirt and cloak, 100 Battles couldn't help but laugh. I believe what you said. It seems that idiot Eric did die in your hands, but today's ending will be different. The person who will die here today will be you. Is that so? Then let's try. Her voice was too calm, so calm that it did not seem like she was facing a formidable enemy, but like she was watching a story that she already knew the ending. Do it. The corner of 100 Battles' mouth raised. It was full of confidence. Swoosh. The wind rose, and 100 Battles' speed was so fast that it was like teleportation. The blade wrapped in the wind rule and divine power directly blasted toward the girl's neck. The two were 10 meters apart, but the attack was completed in 0.1 seconds. For tens of thousands of years, countless opponents had died under this attack, and there was no lack of Lord-level powerhouses. 100 Battles' style was very simple. It could only be described in one word: fast. However, it seemed that the opponent was not slow. Just as 100 Battles' blade slashed toward the opponent's neck, The long sword glowing with starlight was raised almost at the same time. Ding! Sparks shot everywhere. At the moment when the sparks were dazzling, the force on 100 Battles' blade instantly disappeared. The girl also disappeared at the same time. The next second, a piercingly cold flame of light attacked from behind. Bang! The cyclone flowed back on the ground, and 100 Battles' figure disappeared in a flash. The long sword struck down from the sky with a gust of wind. Its speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The girl's figure was not inferior at all. She floated backward and swept her sword, waiting for 100 Battles to fall into the trap. At the same time, the ground trembled, and a golden light bloomed in the air. It was a huge dragon crystal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The surrounding weeds were trembling. That was the effect of the force field. At this moment, 100 Battles was actually unable to move. His body was controlled in place by the force field derived from the opponent's divine power. You've been fooled. The corner of the girl's mouth raised, revealing a peerlessly beautiful smile. In your dreams. 100 Battles looked up at the falling dragon crystal in the air. Suddenly, he waved his long sword and slashed left and right 4 times. Suddenly, the wall of the bit wall seemed to have been slashed through. The endless power of the wind element surged and rushed straight toward the dragon crystal. Boom! The golden light shattered, and at the same time, a faint pain suddenly came from 100 Battles' waist. It was the Dark Moon King's sword. A simple sword actually pierced through the god's wall that 100 Battles' body had condensed on its own. Although the wound was not deep, it was equivalent to a formal declaration of war against 100 Battles, telling him that the Dark Moon had the ability to kill him. When experts exchanged blows, it was only a matter of seconds. In just a few seconds, the two of them had already exchanged blows several times. The result was that a wound appeared on Baijan's waist, while the Dark Moon Azura remained calm and unharmed. The difference in strength could be seen at a glance. The King of 100 Battles was well versed in the wind element divine power. After many years of training, he had already developed his speed to the extreme. The speed of his close-range attack was comparable to the speed of breaking through the void. However, no matter how fast he was, the Dark Moon King in front of him seemed to be able to see through his thoughts and always responded one step ahead of him. Moreover, her power was very pure, and the burning light was simply unbearable. But the King of 100 Battles was unwilling to give up. Fight again! Whirlwinds rose in the wilderness, and the King of 100 Battles was in the center of hundreds of whirlwinds. He looked at his opponent with a hint of a smile in his eyes. He really wanted to know if the Dark Moon King, who had only been in the Banished Land for less than a year, could withstand this move. Wild Wind Kill is not a secret technique that ordinary people can withstand. 100 Battles kindly reminded her, "You have to be careful." The girl smiled and gently opened her palm. Suddenly, rays of light element divine power surged, and the surrounding sky and earth instantly changed color. That was the ability to summon wind and rain. Thunder fell and collided with the crazy storm of the King of 100 Battles. The earth trembled, and the entire wilderness seemed to be torn apart. Golden light bloomed. This time, she took the initiative to attack. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant she slashed out 3 times, but all of them were blocked by the Battlemaster King. However, when the girl turned around, the dozens of dragon crystals that had already condensed behind her bombarded the Battlemaster King like cannonballs. This was the attack that the Battlemaster King might not be able to block. His arm went numb and Baijan's face turned ashen. He knew that his opponent was strong, but he did not expect her to be this strong. Based on her current cultivation, she would probably be able to do as she pleased in the Banished Lands. Boom, boom, boom. The celestial dragon crystals collided with the wind wall, and light shot up into the sky. In the distance, the subordinates of the King of 100 Battles were stunned. They could not see the real battle, but the surging wind and the changing color of the sky and earth were real. This was a battle between kings, a battle between the dominators of heaven and earth. Before the golden smoke dissipated, the palm of the King of 100 Battles, which was holding the sword, had already split open. Blood was flowing down the blade of the sword. However, the sword was burned red by the opponent's light elemental power. The blood that flowed to the blade of the sword was evaporated, and the remaining blood traces turned into ashes and disappeared. Swoosh! A beautiful figure attacked like lightning, and the sword swept across. Clang! The King of 100 Battles finally lost his grip on the sword, and it flew out of his hand. The sword was wide open, and he had completely lost his defense. The girl leaped up and used her snow-white leg to launch a knee strike at the King of 100 Battles at an incredible speed. Suddenly, a cracking sound came from the King of 100 Battles' chin, as if it had been dislocated. His body was also sent flying by the impact of the girl. Ah, ah, ah! The King of 100 Battles howled in agony as his blood splattered across the sky. He was at a complete disadvantage in this close combat. At this moment, his breathing was chaotic, but his opponent seemed to be completely fine. The King of 100 Battles' mind went blank. Who was this woman? Such a strong person would be a rare talent in any plane. Why would that plane expel such a talent to the desolate and uninhabited banished land? Don't kill me! Don't kill me! The King of 100 Battles, who was falling, shouted. Bang! The moment he landed, the girl came to him and stepped on his chest. Her blood-red eyes were emotionless, and she said, I can spare your life, but you have to promise me one thing. Tell me, what is it? Surrender to me. The King of 100 Battles was confused. A king surrendering to another king was something that had never happened in the land of exile. Chapter 763. All right, I promise you. The King of 100 Battles only thought for less than 3 seconds before deciding that survival was the most important thing. Although he was tired of killing in the banished land, living was better than dying. When he thought of the pain and torture suffered by the ghosts in the ghost realm, he felt that death was the scariest thing in the 3 realms. Compared to that, life in the banished land was like the life of a deity. The girl slowly removed her boots and looked at the King of 100 Battles indifferently. What's your name? My name is Yunmu, a name from a long time ago. All right, I'll call you Yunmu from now on. The girl looked into the distance. Are those your subordinates? Yes, my king, the Dark Moon. 100 Battles felt terrible. He didn't know how to address the girl who looked less than 20 years old. After thinking for a while, he said, Can I call you the Queen of the Dark Moon? Up to you. The girl didn't even think about it. 100 Battles was resentful, but he was secretly delighted. If he called her the Queen of the Dark Moon, then he could still be the King of 100 Battles. Otherwise, he was afraid that he could only be demoted to the Lord of 100 Battles. That was something he was extremely unwilling to do. Queen of the Dark Moon, do you need me to summon all my subordinates? 100 Battles asked. The girl was puzzled, as if she didn't understand the meaning of this sentence. After a few seconds, she said, Up to you. The King of 100 Battles roared into the distance, Boys, come here. You have a new master. In the distance, a group of people rushed over. One by one, they knelt before the girl under the King of 100 Battles signal, but their faces were blank. The King of 100 Battles coughed. From now on, she is our Queen of the Dark Moon. All of us must obey her. Do you understand? Everyone nodded. But one of the leaders whispered, My king, what happened? Nothing. The King of 100 Battles gritted his teeth and said, I've lost to her, so I've decided to submit to her. Anyways, from today onwards, she will be our Queen of the Night. You have a choice. One is to follow me and pledge loyalty to the Queen, the other is to die. Everyone shouted in unison, We will never choose death. Sure. The King of 100 Battles nodded. There was a hint of loneliness on his face. He touched his nose and said, Now, let's listen to the Dark Moon Queen's lecture. Queen, please. The young lady didn't understand what he meant. She saw a large group of people kneeling in front of her. These people were the wanderers and leaders of the exiled lands. They were all people who killed people like scything flax. This made her feel annoyed. She hated this group of people from the bottom of her heart. She frowned and said, Yunmu, how many sovereigns are there in the exiled lands? My queen, apart from you and me, there are 11 more. Who is the strongest? This. Bai Zhan frowned and said, originally, I was the strongest, but now, it's you, my queen, who is the strongest? Except for me. Then that means that the sovereign king Inferno is the strongest. All right. The girl wiped off the blood-stained blade. Her expression was so natural and matter-of-fact as she casually said, pack up. Prepare to attack the Flame Sovereign King's territory. Bai Zhan cupped his fists and said, Queen, what are we going to do now? Unify the exiled lands. The girl's starry eyes flickered and she said indifferently, I will never be bullied. On the contrary, the group of subordinates all seemed very excited. If the Queen of the Dark Moon really wanted to unify the exiled lands, then they would definitely follow her and rise to the heavens. Thus, under the blood moon, the group of people rushed like wolves and rushed in the direction of the Flame Sovereign King. Bai Zhan brought over a fine horse and offered it to its new master. The girl flipped onto the horse. She actually had a very familiar feeling towards creatures like warhorses, as if she had been familiar with these creatures for a long time. She gently stroked the hair on the warhorse's head, but her heart trembled slightly. She turned around and looked at the distant horizon. It seemed like something had appeared there, but it disappeared in a flash, as if it didn't want to be discovered by her. She frowned and didn't say anything. She urged the horse to slowly move forward with the group. High up in the clouds, an invisible light screen hid their auras and figures. Behind the light screen, two people stood in the air. They both wore very exquisite armor and had white wings on their backs. One of them was a beautiful woman with long, flowing hair, and the other was a middle-aged man with great strength. Both of them did not look like Asians. Did her light Maxim divine power see through the rule spirit bead? The man smiled faintly and said, Lady Xiyan, it seems that your perception is becoming more and more unreliable. This woman's light divine power isn't too strong. Any four-winged angel in the Western Heaven realm can kill her in 10 moves, right? This beauty was Xiyan, one of the 2 six-winged angels in the Western Heaven realm. After listening to the male angel's words, she couldn't help but smile faintly. Merlin, in terms of insight into the light Maxim, you're just an apprentice in front of me. How dare you speak to me in such a lecturing tone? Aren't you afraid of being punished by me? Merlin was stunned and hurriedly said respectfully, Lady Xiyan, please don't blame me. I made a slip of the tongue. Forget it. Xiyan waved her hand and said, We've been ordered to come here, not to bicker. I don't have the time for that. The Celestial Pole Continent and the Shattered Cauldron Realm are already hard to deal with. This time, the ruler ordered me to personally make a trip to the Banished Land to see if this girl is really the Heaven's chosen one. If she can really see through the light rule spirit bead, then she's a once-in-a-lifetime genius. The ruler's intention is, the chosen one trial is about to begin. If it's confirmed that she's a talent, then we'll bring her back to the God realm and let her participate in the chosen one trial. This way, we can also unearth new talents for the Western Heaven realm. The chosen one trial? I think it's better to forget about it. Merlin said with some disdain. The talents that emerge from the chosen one trial can directly be promoted to a 4-winged angel, or at least a 2-winged angel. This girl is just a barbarian from the Banished Land. Besides, in addition to light type, there's also a very violent Shura aura in her power. Bringing a girl with such a demonic nature back to the Heaven realm to participate in the chosen one trial will make our Western Heaven realm lose face. After all, the students who participate in the chosen one trial are basically sent by the major clans. No, you're wrong. Xiyan smiled faintly. Bringing her to participate in the chosen one trial is the ruler's intention. We can't go against the ruler's will. It's decided then. You and I will stay here for 3 months. If she can defeat all the lords in the Banished Land within 3 months, it means that she's indeed the Heaven's chosen one and can participate in the chosen one trial. Yes, I understand. Merlin licked his lips and said, East Heaven is expanding day by day. Perhaps even the ruler feels a little uneasy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent us to this godforsaken Banished Land to select some rookies. Shi Yan was slightly displeased. She frowned slightly and said, Merlin, you're one of the radiant angels of the Western Heaven realm. Watch your words. You're a god, and a god who receives the power of faith won't swear. Is that so? Merlin laughed and crossed his arms in front of his chest. There are quite a few gods who swear. The most famous one is none other than the 7 luminaries demon emperor of East Heaven. Do you remember the last time we took advantage of the chaos of war to seize the 7 spirit mountains of the Eastern Heaven realm? He pointed at the ruler's nose and scolded him for an hour without repeating himself. The ruler's expression at that time was as ugly as it could be. Really, huh? Xian could not help but laugh. After a few seconds, she restrained her smile and said sternly, Merlin, as a seraph, I warn you to maintain respect and awe for the ruler. Otherwise, you'll be punished. Merlin also restrained his smile and said, I'll remember. By the way, she seemed to have sensed our presence just now, Xian said. It can't be. Merlin was stunned. Lady Xian's light wall can block everything, cutting off auras and all spiritual powers. It's impossible for her, a mere lord of the banished land, to sense our aura. Not necessarily. I hope so, Xian sighed and said, I always feel that she will bring new changes to the Western Heaven realm. As for whether this change is good or bad, I really have no way of seeing through it. It's as if my prophetic ability has completely disappeared. Prophecy is just a kind of compatibility ability. Real history is full of variables. It's not surprising that you can't see through it. Forget it. Let's not talk about this anymore. How's the war between the Celestial Pole Continent and the Shattered Cauldron Realm? Those idiots in the lower realm are gathering their armies to attack. By the way, Lin Muyu disappeared from the Shattered Cauldron Realm. Her aura seemed to appear in the Celestial Pole Continent for a while, but after that, we were completely unable to see through everything in the Celestial Pole Continent. If I'm not mistaken, it should be the energy barrier opened by the 7 luminaries demon emperor that blocked our vision. It's the 7 luminaries demon emperor again. Shi Yan was slightly angry and said, Damn it, it's always him. Yes, if it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the 7 luminaries demon emperor, I'm afraid that the Western Heaven realm's unification of the 4 major galaxies is just around the corner. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. In the forest of no return, Lin Muyu, Si Kongyao, Shang Qian and the others had already stayed for 4 days. Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie's injuries were almost healed. Although their strength was definitely affected because of their injuries, it would no longer affect their journey. In the early morning, they brought all their luggage and began a new journey. According to the rules of the competition, Zhuang Xiaoyu was currently far ahead with a Demon King level Demon Spirit Stone. However, his bones were still in the process of healing, so he most likely couldn't make a move. Bai Mingjie's recovery speed was even slower. If they encountered a demon spirit again, only Lin Muyu could make a move. Therefore, he was the one with the most advantage. Chapter 764. In the afternoon, the lazy sunlight shone on the forest. In front of them was an unexplored mountain path, so everyone could only lead their horses and cut their way through the thorns. Lin Muyu walked at the front, waving her Ice Origin sword and chopping the thorns into pieces. Every strike only used a small amount of the Law of Wind to crush the thorns, as if she didn't want to waste any more energy. Zhuang Xiaoyu led his horse along and couldn't help but laugh. Young hero, how long are you going to take to open a path like this? You're someone who can kill a demonic sovereign by yourself, but the strength of your sword strike can't even compare to a primary sacred warrior. Aren't you saving too much energy? Lin Muyu smiled faintly. Using the least amount of energy to do the most. What's wrong with that? A smile of admiration appeared on Shang Qian's face as she said, Young hero is right. We can encounter danger everywhere in the forest of no return. I think it's right for us to travel slowly and maintain our strength at all times. Only then will we be able to deal with any danger that comes our way. Yes, Miss Shang Qian is right. Zhuang Xiaoyu nodded. Since even Shang Qian had said so, there was nothing to refute. After all, he was a man who had walked through countless flowers and had seen all kinds of women. He naturally knew how to speak in front of women. A man who always refuted a woman's views and bragged would not be able to pick up a woman. Jejia. At this moment, the sharp cry of a falcon came from the sky. From afar, it looked like a small black shadow was circling in the sky. It's a wolf falcon. Lin Muyu frowned. Are we being followed by a dragon rider again? No, that's not a wolf falcon. Zhuang Xiaoyu frowned. A wolf falcon can't fly that high, and its voice is much sharper than a wolf falcon's. It should be a wild falcon. Young hero, there's no need to be suspicious. There are hundreds of beasts in the forest of no return, and birds of prey are no exception. It's very common for 1 or 2 falcons to appear in the sky. If it's a wolf falcon, it would fly even lower in order to follow it. Zhuang Xiaoyu was from the Tianji Empire and the son of the prime minister. He knew more about dragon riders and wolf falcons than Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu naturally couldn't refute him. She nodded and said, anyways, we just have to be careful. I'll lead the way. Brother Xiaoyu, bring up the rear. The young prince and Miss Sikong will be in charge of guarding against the enemies around us. Although he was just a small ranger in the eyes of the others, his words were heavy and powerful. It actually made Zhuang Xiaoyu, Si Kongyao, Bai Mingjie, and the others feel that they had no choice but to obey him. A trace of surprise flashed through Shang Qian's beautiful eyes. He saw another valuable quality in Lin Muyu, leadership. That's right, this person couldn't be simple. An ordinary ranger wouldn't have such a weather-beaten and capable temperament. Chen Hang, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. He looked up at the sky and said, the mountain roads are difficult to travel. We don't have to go too far. Let's find a water source and set up camp near dusk. Nighttime is when demonic spirits are most active. I have a bad feeling that we've walked into a trap set up by a demonic spirit. Trap? Si Kongyao's mouth was wide open. Uncle Chen Hang, what do you mean by that? Chen Hang respectfully said, reporting to Miss Sikong. Demonic spirits understand human nature and also know how to scheme. 2 days ago, we killed a demon king and 2 demon sovereigns. However, we haven't received any attacks from the demonic spirits. This can only mean one thing. The demonic spirits are gathering their strength. They plan to use their numbers to crush and kill us all at once. Si Kongyao's beautiful eyes widened. That's impossible. Demonic spirits have always been alone. How could they move in a group? There's no such record in the Empire's demon spirit book. Haha. Chen Hang couldn't help but laugh and said, the demon spirit book is an ancient book from 300 years ago. It was written by several sacred martial king-level experts. How profound can it be? According to what I know, it's not like thousands of demonic spirits have never appeared before. However, there must be a core figure for them to move in a group. Core figure? Shang Qian was stunned. What's that? Demonic Emperor. Chen Hang's voice was very deep as he said, the demonic emperor is the ruler of the entire demonic spirit world. Only the demonic emperor has the ability to summon so many demonic spirits to attack together. 2,000 years ago, the Blackstone Empire invaded our territory. 270,000 troops passed through the forest of no return and encountered a demonic spirit army commanded by a demonic emperor. The 270,000 troops were so frightened that they stopped advancing and could only retreat in the end. You can imagine how powerful the demonic emperor is. Zhuang Xiaoyu frowned his brows. Uncle Chen, don't be an alarmist. This junior killed a demon king a few days ago. This demonic spirit is only a stubborn branch of the continent. If the 5 major forces were to join forces, they would be able to kill all the demonic spirits in the continent within 10 years. How powerful would the demonic emperor be then? Really? Chen Hang smiled faintly and said, I think young Master Zhuang might be wrong. A mere demon king is nothing. Furthermore, the demon king you killed had a dull color on its neck. Obviously, it was a demon sovereign that had just advanced to the demon king realm. Its strength was even weaker. It is said that a demon the arch can easily kill 5 demon kings working together. Don't you know? 5 demon kings? Zhuang Xiaoyu's voice was slightly trembling. Forget it. Chen Hang flicked his sleeves and said, the demonic emperor is only a legend. No one has seen it before. There have been no legends of the demonic emperor in the continent for close to 100 years. We probably won't meet one either. But those auras are not fake. Lin Muyu suddenly said. Everyone looked at him. Shang Qian asked, young hero, what auras? They are following our auras. They are not far nor near. Approximately 10 miles away. They just don't enter our field of vision. We are being followed. How is that possible? Zhuang Xiaoyu was stunned. How did young hero know of auras that are 10 miles away? The kingdom's sacred martial supreme experts can only sense auras that are 5 miles away. In any case, there are. If you don't believe me, asked Chen Hang. Chen Hang was silent for a few seconds before nodding and saying, he is right. There are indeed many auras following us. There are at least 20 or more demonic spirits. Their strength. The weakest one is a 4th-class demonic spirit. Oh my God, Si Kongyao was shocked. Then we are finished. Why don't we leave Lu Bai and Shi Tianming and fly away from the forest of no return? We can still save our lives that way, Shi Tianming wailed. Don't, young miss, save me, Chen Hang smiled. Forget it. Young miss, you are thinking too simply. There are many demonic spirits that are good at flying and capturing auras. In terms of sensitivity to auras, the demonic spirit's perception is stronger than ours. It is almost impossible for us to fly away. Moreover, he emphasized his tone and said, don't pin your hopes on the support of sacred martial god-level experts. Even with the strength of a sacred martial god, they can shatter the void and teleport no more than 50 miles in the same plane. We are 500 to 600 miles away from Tianji City. Even if sect leader Si Kongming and commander Zhang Qing know of our danger, they won't be able to come for a while. We can only rely on ourselves. Yes, rely on ourselves. Despite being in a desperate situation, Zhuang Xiaoyu's state of mind calmed down and his face regained its confidence. This was the attitude that an expert should have, unlike Lu Bai and Shi Tianming who were already pale with fright. As for Si Kongyao, her fear seemed to be a contrast to the atmosphere around them. In fact, this guy didn't seem to be worried about anything. He was just looking forward to seeing a more lively scene. Shang Qian's pair of beautiful eyes swept across everyone and found that the most calm and composed were Chen Hang and Lin Muyu. This also vaguely proved that these two people had the highest cultivation among the group. This made Shang Qian look at Lin Muyu even more. Just as Chen Hang said, this guy hid his strength deeply and no one knew how strong he was. Young hero, will we be all right? Lu Bai led his horse and followed closely behind Lin Muyu. He asked cautiously. Don't worry, we will be fine. Oh, that's good. At most, we will be eaten by the demon spirit. That way, we will be free from the troubles of the world. Don't you think so, Lini? Young hero, are you joking? Lu Bai's face was ashen. I don't want to die. I'm still a virgin. Lin Muyu waved her sword and cut down a clump of thorns. She casually said, who isn't? I don't want to die either. Then I will live well. Si Kongyao and Shang Qian opened their mouths at the same time, as if they had understood something. As for Zhuang Xiaoyu, Shi Tianming, and Bai Mingjie, they all grinned. Everyone had a tacit understanding. In this day and age, those who had never touched a woman in their 20s were mostly very poor. As for the three of them, they had been born into wealthy families. They had already experienced countless women. Life was short, and they should enjoy themselves in the moment. To them, having 3 wives and 4 concubines was something that they should do. Lu Bai was obviously poor. It was understandable that he had never touched a woman, but Lin Muyu had an extraordinary temperament and was so powerful. It was unimaginable that he had never had a woman. Thus, Zhuang Xiaoyu and Shi Tianming looked at him strangely. Lin Muyu felt goosebumps rising from their stares. Was it wrong to be pure in this day and age? If that was the case, when Qin Yin returned, she would have to discuss this important matter with her. If Qin Yin agreed, then it would be a success. If Qin Yin was too shy to say it, then the passionate Xiao she should be willing. Thinking of Tang Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu felt warmth in her heart. She wondered how she was doing in the Shattered Cauldron realm. She should be working hard to prepare for the war. It must have been hard on her. In the evening, they found a water source in the forest and set up camp not far away. Chapter 765. At night, the bright moon hung high in the sky. It was rare for there to be such a beautiful night. The cool breeze blew gently, causing the branches in the forest to rustle. Lin Muyu laid on an ancient tree between the rocks with her arms as a pillow. Her eyes were looking at the stars in the sky while her heart was thinking about the person far away. She allowed the starlight and moonlight to seep into her body. She slowly circulated the star art and cultivated by herself. A faint fragrance entered her nose. She didn't need to think to know who it was. Why aren't you refining and absorbing demon spirit stones today? Si Kongyao sat beside Lin Muyu and asked with a smile. Maintain your strength. It won't be quiet tonight. Why do you say that? Si Kongyao was surprised. Lin Muyu said indifferently, I can sense ruthlessness and killing intent from the demon spirits. I think they will make their move tonight, right? Since we can't escape, we can only fight. Si Kongyao knitted her brows. Are you sure? I'm sure. How many demon spirits are there? At least 1,000 with varying strengths. From rank 9 to Demon King. We can only hope that there won't be any demon the arch. Otherwise, we will die here tonight. Speaking until here, Lin Muyu lifted her head and looked at Si Kongyao. She noticed that Si Kongyao's beautiful face was also looking at her. Lin Muyu's eyes turned gentle as she smiled. She lowered her voice and said, Young lady Si Kong, if there really is a demon the arch-class demon spirit, you can't run around. You have to stay by my side. I will bring you and Lu Bai and leave by shattering the void. After that, I will bring Lu Bai and fly. We will leave the forest of no return as soon as possible. Really? Si Kongyao felt warm and happy. Although Lin Muyu said that they should run away, he still had her in his heart and put her in front of Shang Qian. Shang Qian was the #1 beauty in the empire and was more feminine than her. After all, she was older and more mature. Sometimes, a girl's mind was so simple. If she loved someone, if he treated her well, she would be dead set on him. However, as a martial saint, Si Kongyao's temperament had become much wilder as she cultivated. She wouldn't submit to a man so easily. She pouted and said, I'm not running away. If I'm going to leave, I'll bring everyone with me. I came out with big sister Shang Qian. I can't go back alone. And let's do our best. Although Lin Muyu was from the Shattered Cauldron realm, she had been with this group of people for a long time. She was embarrassed to let Shi Tianming, Zhuang Xiaoyu, and the others die in the forest of no return. However, the murderous aura tonight was too heavy. It would be difficult for everyone to escape unscathed. Swish. Lin Muyu flipped over and landed on the ground. She walked on the rocky road outside the campsite and even stomped on the road. Most of it was rocks, and a small portion was soil. What's wrong? Si Kongyao followed. It's better to be prepared. Let's dig a trap. Lin Muyu smiled. She suddenly recalled the scene in the dragon-seeking forest when she, Wei Chou, and the others were hiding from the heaven beast. It was very similar to today. The only difference was that today's opponents were much stronger. The heaven beast's strength was at most equivalent to a tier 4 demon spirit, but today's opponents were demon kings or even demon thearchs. A trap. Si Kongyao's eyes lit up. She was overflowing with interest. She loved interesting things the most. Young lady, step aside. Lin Muyu raised her palm and pushed Si Kongyao's delicate body back, opening up a space of about 10 meters in front of her. If they wanted to get close to the campsite, this was practically a path that the terrestrial demon spirits had to pass through. Therefore, she would just have to exhaust them here. Thinking up to here, Lin Muyu's palm had already produced a whirlpool of wind. Suddenly, the rocks in front of her flew up as though they were being pulled. In the next moment, countless tiny wind blades seeped out of the ground in front of them and rapidly spun, cutting the ground into tiny pieces. In just a moment, a 3-meter wide, 30-meter long, and 8-meter deep pit appeared in front of them. However, this was an undisguised trap. Lin Muyu controlled the law of wind and piled a pile of rocks on the hillside behind the campsite, greatly increasing the height of the hillside. Shang Qian also walked over at this moment and looked at Lin Muyu in amazement. Rumble, 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 huge trees collapsed one after another. Lin Muyu brandished his long sword and continuously cut down the thin branches and leaves. Then he used his fire god's power to evaporate the tree trunks and threw all of them into the trap. The branches were then used as a cover. Young hero, how do you know all of this? Shang Qian finally couldn't help but ask. Lin Muyu smiled and said, when I was young, I followed his honor to travel around and cultivate. I encountered quite a few wild beasts, so I already know how to protect myself. As long as the low-grade demon spirits fall into the trap, we just need to throw a torch and it will be enough to kill them 7 to 8 times. Shang Qian nodded and smiled. Behind him, Zhuang Xiaoyu and Bai Mingjie also walked over. Zhuang Xiaoyu's face was filled with disdain as he smiled and said, young hero, this is too unnecessary. What's the use of killing a few low-grade demon spirits? Using this kind of trick is completely useless. Lin Muyu didn't explain. He leaped back onto the tree and closed his eyes. He had already done all he could, the rest would depend on everyone's luck. However, everyone waited for a long time. It was around 3 in the morning, but the demon spirits still didn't attack. Could it be that they have given up on attacking us? Zhuang Xiaoyu put away his purple gold fan. Not necessarily. Bai Mingjie's hand was on the hilt of his sword as he quietly sat there. He knew that his strength was not as good as Zhuang Xiaoyu's, nor was it as good as Lin Muyu and Si Kongyao's. Therefore, the only thing he could do was to conserve his strength and survive the upcoming battle. Oh, in the distance, a wolf's howl could be heard, which also meant that the demon spirits were invading. They're here. Lin Muyu flipped himself up from the tree. His gaze was like a sword as he looked into the distance and said, so many, they're coming together. Everyone be careful. Everyone retreat, don't get close to the entrance of the valley. Zhuang Xiaoyu stepped on the air and flew up. Looking into the distance, he saw a blood-red light soaring into the sky. A black mass of demon spirits were flying over. Some were running on the ground, some were flying in the sky. Zhuang Xiaoyu's face instantly turned pale as he said, ah yao, so many flying-type demon spirits, what should we do? Si Kongyao clenched his teeth and pulled out his sword with a clang. The divine power of the ice mystic art surged on the blade as he said, what other choice do we have besides fighting them to the death? Do we still have to negotiate? The demon spirits naturally wouldn't negotiate. Humans had intruded into their territory, so they could only be satisfied by slaughtering. At this moment, Shang Qian raised his head to look at Lin Muyu, only to find that this strange guy actually took out a blood-red longbow from his spatial bag. It didn't look like an ordinary item, and with a wave of his hand, he took out a quiver filled with silver arrows. That was the luster of a white diamond arrow. Squeak! Lin Muyu lightly exerted force and pulled the longbow into a full moon shape. Although his archery skills were far from Wei Chao's, as his cultivation increased, he became more proficient. At the very least, any large target within 200 meters would not be able to escape from his arrows. Whoosh! The white diamond arrow carried a strand of divine power as it pierced through the sky. With a pu sound, it shot into the head of a Class 6 demon spirit wolf, directly piercing through its brain. This demon spirit wolf also became the first victim of tonight's bloody battle. He is actually proficient in archery? Si Kongyao looked back. Her eyes were almost filled with little stars. In Si Kongyao's eyes, this guy is becoming more and more perfect, like a real god. After shooting the arrow, Lin Muyu did not stop. He quickly took out a second white diamond arrow and placed it on the bowstring. In less than a second, the arrow was shot out with a powerful force, once again piercing through the head. That was a Class 7 flying-type demon spirit. It looked like a hornet, but its body was similar to a Tibetan mastiff. Its body was covered in hard armor, but this hard armor was simply unable to block the tip of the white diamond arrow. Arrow after arrow, Lin Muyu stood on top of the tree. In a blink of an eye, he had already killed dozens of demon spirits on the ground and in the air. Although they were all low-rank demon spirits, it greatly boosted the morale of the demon spirits. Furthermore, the death of the low-rank demon spirits also caused their companions to feel fear. The demon spirit that was running at the front even revealed a little bit of satisfaction. Jie, a sharp bird cry came from the sky. There were streaks of flames. Zhuang Xiaoyu raised his head to take a look. His face was pale. Be careful, it's a class 5 demon spirit, Flamingo. Flamingo can control fire. Don't let them get close, or else the camp will be finished. Flamingo? Lin Muyu took out another arrow, knocked it on the bow, and aimed at the flamingo in the distance. Both of her eyes were covered with a layer of faint gold, and her vision suddenly became very clear. The flamingo's body is even bigger than a wolf falcon, but its head is extremely small, only the size of a cat's head. She must shoot its head, otherwise, she might not be able to kill it. After all, it's a class 5 demon spirit. So, the arrow flew out, accurately hitting the flamingo's head. However, only a jeje sound could be heard. The flamingo's body slightly trembled in the air, flapped its wings, and actually flew back up. This arrow actually did not pierce through the flamingo's head? Such a hard skull. This arrow contained 10% of Lin Muyu's strength. Clenching her teeth, she can no longer save her divine power. She used 20% of her strength. This arrow directly pierced through the flamingo's head, and a streak of flames fell from the sky. Before it landed, the flames were extinguished. Good archery! Si Kongyao sincerely praised. Lin Muyu was speechless for a while. If this archery is considered good, then Wei Chao's archery must be considered godly. Chapter 766. Roar, roar, roar. The ground slightly trembled as a group of black shadows charged over from the entrance of the valley. Their bodies were heavy. It's a group of rhinoceroses with weird faces. Their faces looked like Curator King. It's the human-faced rhinoceros. Be careful, it's a Tier 4 demon spirit. Qin Hang shouted. Tier 4 demon spirit. Lin Muyu's heart sank. It seems like her plan is going to fail. A Tier 4 demon spirit strength is at least equivalent to the Holy King realm. These huge human-faced rhinoceroses are charging over. Can the trap she dug really kill them? Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, dozens of human-faced rhinoceroses fell into the trap. She could only try her best. Lin Muyu raised her palm. Heavenly fire descended from the sky and fell into the trap, quickly igniting the firewood in the trap. The human-faced rhinoceroses are land creatures. They haven't cultivated to human form yet. They wailed in pain, but they didn't show any signs of being burned to death. Instead, they crazily smashed into the soil in the trap, causing the ground to tremble as if they've gone mad. In the sky, there were dozens of flamingos and different flying creatures, but they're all demon spirits. Lin Muyu shot out arrows as fast as she could. She doesn't want to make a move right now. There's definitely a stronger demon spirit behind this flock of flamingos. She has to preserve her strength to escape. Let's go! Zhuang Xiaoyu flew up and waved his purple gold fan. A gale soared into the sky, shredding 2 flamingos into pieces. Bai Mingjie also raised his long sword and fought with a Tier 4 demon spirit. Shang Qian stood outside the camp. Her eyes reflected the figures fighting with the others. She said in a low voice, Uncle Chen, you should go as well. Otherwise, everyone might really die. Missy, take care of yourself. Chen Hang took out a weapon from his interspatial bag. It's an azure spear, rock collapse spear. Rank 6 sacred grade spear. It's a pretty good weapon in the Tianji Empire. With an angry roar, Chen Hang was like a bolt of lightning as he arrived in front of the traps. The rock-crushing spear pierced into the mouth of a human-faced rhinoceros with lightning speed. Earth attribute divine force surged and directly crushed the head of the human-faced rhinoceros. A 4th-tier demon spirit was actually killed by him in one hit. The rock collapse spear danced wildly, killing one demon spirit after another. Chen Hang was indeed a sacred grade martial king. Against a demon spirit below the demon venerable rank, it's simply a massacre. The flames became colder. The flamingos in the sky quickly flapped their wings, condensed fire arrows and shot down. Wuxia, who was fighting with a demon venerable, couldn't help but find it a little difficult to deal with. She held her sword and retreated dozens of meters. She gently raised her palm and condensed an ice shield to block the flamingo's attack. Clang, 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 clang. The flame arrows splashed on the surface of the ice shield. This was a great consumption of Si Kongyao's divine power. Die! Si Kongyao suddenly shuttled through space. She stepped on a cloud and slashed the flamingo's head. She then flipped and retreated to avoid the attacks of two stingy bees. The ice dome in her palm was dense. Overwhelming power surged. The first style of the ice mystic art, Frost, danced in the sky and froze a few flying type tier 6 demon spirits into ice cubes. Missy Sikong, good job! Lu Bai cheered from afar. However, at this moment, a woman's delicate shout came from behind. Missy Sikong? Go to hell. It's a woman wearing green clothes. There are 2 patterns on her neck. She's a demon king level demon spirit. However, she's already in human form. Furthermore, she's a very enchanting woman. Her degree of provocation far exceeds Si Kongyao and Shang Qian. She waved her sharp claws and attacked Si Kongyao's back. Si Kongyao, who had just broken through space once, can no longer use this ability. She hastily swung her sword. Ice and snow fluttered in the air. Ice blade. Bang! The ice blade was actually torn apart by the Demon King's sharp claws. The enchanting woman grabbed onto Si Kongyao's sword and swung it with all her might. She actually brought Si Kongyao's body down to the ground. With a loud crash, the air currents reverberated as Si Kongyao fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. Her face was filled with anger as she grabbed the Demon King's wrist with a backhand. The dome of ice around her rapidly swirled. Ice blade cage. Poo poo poo, sounds rang out as the surrounding ice dome blades formed a cage. They collided with the demon monarch's body like sharp swords, directly piercing through her clothes. Under the moonlight, her beautiful body was covered in wounds. Si Kongyao's strength was not fake. Furthermore, she was well versed in Si Kongming's secret art. Even if she could not completely defeat a demon monarch, she would not be defeated. However, this isn't a one-on-one battle. Bang! Si Kongyao's body suddenly trembled. Behind her, a huge man-faced rhinoceros slammed its horn heavily into her back. The ice dome chi shattered and Si Kongyao immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The Demon King laughed loudly and threw Si Kongyao's body into the crater. She screamed, "Brats, eat her for me!" Rustling sounds came from the ground. It was a group of beetles crawling out from the ground. It's the carrion beetles. Zhuang Xiaoyu, who was being held back by 2 demonic venerables, was shocked. He turned to look at Lin Muyu and roared, "Do you want to watch Yao die? You trash, do you only know how to watch from afar?" Shua! A streak of light shot out from the cliff. Lin Muyu originally didn't want to use this move, but it seemed like she had no choice but to use it now. The wind from her punch was biting cold, carrying the power of chaos of the lives as it swept out. Bang! The explosion of power sent a group of carrion beetles flying. Lin Muyu bent down and wrapped one hand around Si Kongyao's waist. Si Kongyao's face was pale, and the corner of her mouth was full of blood. However, a smile appeared on her face. "I knew you would save me. Don't speak." Lin Muyu raised her head and saw that the Demon King was no longer wearing any clothes. She walked over in a seductive manner. She was indeed a stunner, but also a deadly creature. She looked at Lin Muyu with a smile and said, "Yo, young man, you're pretty strong. However, you must die here today. My 300+ stinger bees have been yearning for blood for a long time." Behind her, a dense swarm of stinging bees danced in the air. They were all 6th-tier demon spirits. If this swarm of stinging bees attacked ferociously, with their advantage in numbers, they would probably be able to turn any sacred martial king into a dried corpse. Pif! Bai Mingjie spat out a mouthful of blood. His arms and chest were covered in wounds. He could no longer fight. There were too many demon spirits, and it was not something that a few people could handle. Even Chen Hang was panting heavily. His divine power was almost exhausted. Everyone back off. Lin Muyu said indifferently. What did you say? Chen Hang and Zhuang Xiaoyu asked in surprise. At this moment he actually told everyone to back off. Did he want to die with Si Kongyao? Under everyone's astonished gaze, a golden halo rose from Lin Muyu's feet. The buzzing sound was extremely uncomfortable, but everyone could feel the power of this halo. Moreover, there were lines of ancient characters circling around the halo. It was profound and mysterious. A word was already on the verge of coming out. How is this possible? Chen Hang stood there in a daze. Lin Muyu carried the heavily injured Si Kongyao with one hand. She raised her other hand, and the golden wheel quickly appeared in her palm. It rapidly expanded, turning into a huge wheel with a radius of over 100 meters. Under Lin Muyu's command, it swept out. The mountains cracked and the earth sank. Hundreds of stinger bees were turned to dust by this attack. Even the Demon King whimpered miserably. Like a broken leaf, it was sent flying hundreds of meters away by the roulette's attack, and no one knew where it had landed. The shockwave only spread out a few seconds later, shaking the mountains and rivers. This is... Si Kongyao opened her mouth, not knowing what to say. Zhuang Xiaoyu, Shi Tianming, Bai Mingjie, and the rest were all dumbfounded. God. Chen Hang stood there silently, but he didn't utter the word, wheel. He knew that the divine will could only be activated by a sovereign with a sovereign persona or a god emperor. The young man in front of him was clearly not as strong as a god emperor, so there was only one other possibility. What did the sovereign persona mean to the entire continent? It was a kind of king's way, a kind of power that made the world revere and fall silent. Uncle Chen Hang, there are some things that shouldn't be known by too many people. You understand this principle, right? Lin Muyu said lightly. Chen Hang's expression became respectful. Yes, young hero. I understand. Young hero, please rest assured. I will keep my mouth shut. And many thanks. Chen Hang knew what a person with a supremacy godhead meant. He could be the ruler of the world in the future. Who would dare to offend such a person? Chen Hang was just a small guard leader. He couldn't even be ranked in the top 10 in the entire Tianji Empire, let alone the entire Celestial Pole continent or even the entire Three Realms. It didn't matter if he offended Lin Muyu now. But in the future, he might have to pay the price of having his soul destroyed. Is everyone okay? Lin Muyu asked. Everyone shook their heads. To them, it was fine if they didn't die. Si Kongyao wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and struggled to stand up. She was still holding onto Lin Muyu's arm. Her beautiful eyes looked into the distance. The remaining demons had already escaped. She said faintly, have they all been scared away? Chen Hang, maybe. But at this moment, a melodious voice came from afar. It was a very melodious woman's voice. In the boundless mountains and seas, demons gather. In the long blue sky, they fly freely. Heaven and earth, my heart is unfathomable. The moral of the world is a joke. Chen Hang was shocked. That's over, that's over. Chapter 767. The melody of the zither was accompanied by the ballad. It was as if someone was reciting an ancient story, but if one listened carefully, there was a hidden murderous intent. At least, the person singing this song was definitely not a human. It was a well-known fact that high-class demon spirits could transform into human form. For a high-class demon spirit to be able to sing and play the zither, it must be extremely powerful. Chen Hang held the rock-collapsing spear and retreated quickly. He stood beside Shang Qian and whispered, "Eldest young lady, let's go." Go. Shang Qian was stunned. Chen Hang lowered his voice and said, "The demonic the arch is here. It must be the demonic the arch. We don't even have a sacred martial god in our group. We are definitely not a match for the demonic the arch. Staying here is equivalent to waiting for death. Let them resist for a while. This subordinate will fly with eldest young lady for a distance and stay behind to cover the rear. Eldest young lady, Return to the imperial capital the way you came and never come back to the forest of no return again. This won't do, Shang Qian said indifferently. I can't let Si Kongyao escape in panic when she is in danger. Uncle Chen, if you are afraid, you can leave first. Even if I die, I want to die with everyone. Chen Hang's face revealed a trace of pain. But eldest young lady, before we left, Lord Zhang Cheng instructed me. In short, I can't go back on my word. Shang Qian's face was filled with determination. So, fine. Then this subordinate will accompany eldest young lady and risk our lives here. Perhaps we won't die. With young hero here. Shang Qian's pair of bright eyes looked in the direction of Lin Muyu and Chu Yao. No, after using the god power, young hero's strength dropped by at least 50%. Even if he maintained his full god power, he wouldn't be a match for the demonic the Arch. Moreover, he only has 50% of his strength now. Chen Hang was a little dejected and said, I didn't expect our luck to be this bad. The forest of no return is thousands of miles away, but we just had to encounter this damned demon emperor. At that moment, Zhuang Xiaoyu held the purple gold fan shakily and gathered his divine power in his throat. He said loudly, We're Zhuang Xiaoyu, the son of the Grand Minister of the Tianji Empire, Bai Mingjie, the son of the Luo King, and Si Kongyao, the young mistress of the Tianji sect. I wonder who you are. Since you're already here, why don't you show yourself? The cold wind whistled, and the singing stopped abruptly. Only a rustling sound could be heard from the forest. The next moment, countless demon spirits appeared on the hill 500 meters away. There were demon kings and demon venerables in human form, as well as high-level demon spirits with stooped bodies. They were in different forms, and all of them had ferocious looks in their eyes. They glared at the humans in front of them as if they wanted to tear them into pieces. Zhuang Xiaoyu, Chen Hang, Si Kongyao, and the rest were dumbfounded. Oh no, the demon spirits that were dispersed by Lin Muyu's spirit will seem to have gathered again due to the singing. It seems like the situation is bad. Si Kongyao said with a faint look in her eyes, There are so many demon spirits. We can't escape even if we wanted to. It's all my fault. I was so careless and insisted on entering the forest of no return. Why did I bring trouble upon myself? Lin Muyu comforted her. It's okay. You won't die here. Why are you so confident? Commoner E is a fortune teller. He already knew that we wouldn't die in the forest of no return before our lifespans ended. Is that so? Si Kongyao felt some comfort in her heart. She turned to look in Lu Bai's direction, only to find that he was hugging the bottom of a big tree and squatting there, shivering. He only dared to poke his head out to look at the situation. Instantly, Si Kongyao's heart sank. It seemed that the fraud himself was scared out of his wits. She should just forget about this kind of fortune-telling. It was too unreliable. Bai Mingjie stabbed his blood-stained longsword into the ground. His arms were full of demon spirit scratch marks, and his face had a hint of vicissitude as he said, Brother Xiaoyu, I didn't expect that after so many years in the imperial capital, we would have to die here together. Sigh, it's fate, I guess. Zhuang Xiaoyu frowned. He didn't want to die here. He raised his brows and said, Young Duke, there's no need to be too depressed. Let's wait and see. For now, they only have 2 demon kings and 5 demon sovereigns. If that's the case, even if we don't have the chance to win, there's still a chance to escape. As long as the demon the Arch doesn't appear. Before he could finish his sentence, the countless demon spirits on the hill suddenly went into an uproar. Many demon spirits retreated with respect on their faces. Even those ugly mudskippers with the head of a wolf and the body of a snake also prostrated themselves on the ground. The crowd of demon spirits parted like a tide, opening up a path. Then, a powerful aura slowly descended onto the ground. Shushu, a pair of exquisite lotus flower gold shoes stepped on the wild grass and ascended the hill. Under the illumination of the bright moon, it was an absolutely beautiful woman who was around 25 years old. She was enchanting and had a beautiful face that could move one's soul. In her arms, she was hugging an instrument that looked like a pipa. She wore a long dress and walked over in a charming manner. Her eyes were like stars as she looked at Lin Muyu and the others from afar. She said indifferently, "Someone is looking for me?" Her voice was extremely pleasant to listen to, even more so than when she was singing earlier. Zhuang Xiaoyu turned around and floated forward. He cupped his hands respectfully and said, "Junior Zhuang Xiaoyu greets Senior." "Senior?" The woman with the pipa smiled and looked at Zhuang Xiaoyu with all kinds of charm. "You look like you're at least 30 years old and I'm only 20 years old. What right do you have to call me senior?" Because... Zhuang Xiaoyu was originally eloquent, but under the piercingly cold gaze of the other party, he actually couldn't say anything. "Because I'm a demon the arch?" The beauty suddenly smiled and said. Zhuang Xiaoyu's face was covered in beads of sweat. His body was slightly trembling, and he didn't dare to reply. The beauty's charming face was covered in a layer of frost as she said, "That's right, we are demon spirits. However, the demon spirit clan has lived in the forest of no return for many years, and we have never interfered with you humans. Why do you repeatedly send people into the forest to kill our clansmen? I don't care if you are a prince or a situ. Today, you have entered my forest of no return and killed my demon spirit elder. Only death awaits you." Zhuang Xiaoyu was overwhelmed with shock. "What? Do you have anything to say before you die?" The beauty faintly smiled and said, "Forget it, I'll let you die in peace. I'll tell you my name. I'm Nu Shi, the 21st demon the arch of the forest of no return. I'm in charge of the 3,000 miles of fertile land in the forest of no return. Now you can die." As she spoke, Nu Shi floated forward with her pipa in her arms. The demonic power around her condensed into a scarlet cloud, and Nu Shi leaped up and sat on the cloud. Her figure was graceful, and she affectionately adjusted the strings of her pipa. Her eyes revealed a smile that made people's hearts turn cold. She said, "Do you want to die one by one, or do you want to die together?" The demon the arch Nu Shi was too powerful. She was at least a god the arch expert. Moreover, the pipa in her hands looked unpredictable. No one knew what her attack method was. Lin Muyu gripped the ice essence sword. He knew that he couldn't force his way out, but it was different this time. Regardless of whether he made a move or not, as long as Nu Shi wanted to kill them, he had to face her. Rather than that, he might as well make a move earlier and not let Zhuang Xiaoyu and Baiming Jie die in vain. At least he had the heavenly book, and escaping wouldn't be a problem. Just as Lin Muyu took a step forward, Si Kongyao suddenly grabbed his wrist and shook her head at him, indicating that he shouldn't act rashly. After all, Si Kongyao also felt that Lin Muyu's divine power was severely depleted. If he went forward rashly, he would simply be courting death. The best way was to let Zhuang Xiaoyu, Baiming Jie, and Chen Hang test out the demon the arch Nu Shi's strength first. Chen Hang remained silent. Baiming Jie's hand that was holding the sword was still trembling. Before he accepted the challenge, he had already lost to this powerful demon the arch in terms of aura. Zhuang Xiaoyu couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow. He had been frivolous all his life, and with his arrogant talent, he was revered by the entire capital and even the entire Tianji Empire. He was the number one among the younger generation. But now, he had a kind of enlightenment before his death. As long as he took a step forward and accepted the challenge from Nu Shi, he could already foresee his ending. But now, only Zhuang Xiaoyu was standing in front of him. If he didn't accept the challenge, who would? Forget it, Zhuang Xiaoyu suddenly burst into laughter. The saddest thing was that Si Kongyao, who he had grown up with and regarded as his younger sister, actually sent him to his death for a stranger. Zhuang Xiaoyu had always thought that he was dutiful to his friends. But now, it seemed that his frivolousness and pride seemed to have ruined all his efforts. At this moment, what was the difference between him and being deserted by his friends and family? "Miss Shangqian," Zhuang Xiaoyu muttered, took a deep breath, and said, "Zhuang Xiaoyu doesn't have the fortune to accompany you in this life. We can only meet again in the next life." Shangqian stared blankly and remained silent. In Shangqian's heart, Zhuang Xiaoyu's existence was only because of his identity, status, and strength. As for affection, she was afraid that there wouldn't be any affection at all in just a few days. Wind attribute divine power whistled around the purple gold fan. Zhuang Xiaoyu let out a furious roar and raised his aura to the peak. His body slowly rose, and with a casual wave of his hand, an azure-colored storm swept over. Nu Shirshir, who was above the hill, didn't say a word. Her dainty fingers lightly plucked the zither strings. The zither strings were silent, but a vigorous and formless impact was blasted out, tearing apart Zhuang Xiaoyu's wind attribute attack. Ugh. Zhuang Xiaoyu let out a miserable groan. His body was a little numb, and there were 2 streams of blood flowing down from his nose. Such a powerful demon, the Arch. Just a single attack actually caused him to suffer internal injuries. The most terrifying thing was that Zhuang Xiaoyu didn't even see how Nu Shirshir attacked. He didn't know which law she was using, and there was no way for him to defend against it. Well done. Zhuang Xiaoyu let out a miserable roar. He raised the purple gold fan with both his hands and gathered all the energy in his body. With a loud bang, he blasted out another attack. It was the 3rd style of the wind god absolute, heaven and earth rend. Nu Shirshir let out a light snort, and a trace of contempt flashed past her delicate face. Her fingers lightly swung on the zither strings, and it was another formless and soundless attack. This time, Zhuang Xiaoyu's chest suddenly shook with a bang. His body rapidly curled up like a shrimp, and he vomited a large mouthful of blood in the air. You are not my opponent. Get lost. Nu Shirshir raised her palm, and Zhuang Xiaoyu was blasted to the ground by a surge of profound energy. Fresh blood sprayed in the sky. Chapter 768. Sound Wave Attack. It must be a sound wave attack. It was just like the murderous song played by Qin Yin with the 7-string zither. However, Nu Shir's sound wave attack was even more tyrannical. It was invisible and soundless, and it could kill people from 100 meters away. Even Zhuang Xiaoyu had used his family's secret art, but it was all for naught. He couldn't do anything as the invisible attack of the zither wasn't something that the wind could resist. Who's next? Nu Shir's eyes were indistinct, and her pure face didn't have any trace of the mortal world. She didn't look like a demon the Arch who killed people like flies, but a fairy that descended to the mortal world. However, Zhuang Xiaoyu, who was lying on the ground, was obviously proof that she wasn't. Lin Muyu remained silent. Chen Hang was an old fox, but his strength was much more tyrannical than Zhuang Xiaoyu. If Lin Muyu didn't make a move, Chen Hang probably wouldn't make a move. However, at this moment, Nu Shir smiled and said, Chen Hang, you are also someone who has cultivated for a long time. But do you want a few juniors to be cannon fodder while you sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? Chen Hang said coldly, How do you know my name? Nu Shir shook with laughter and sat on the clouds like a mischievous woman. She said, There are descendants of my demon spirit race everywhere in the celestial pole continent. As long as someone ascends or steps into the god state, how can I not know? The Tianji Empire only has 12 people in the sacred martial king realm. You are one of them, so I naturally know. Chen Hang's eyes turned cold. Since that's the case, this old man shall experience Demon the Arch Nu Shir's secret art. Come on, this servant is waiting for you. Nu Shir's enchanting voice caused Chen Hang's emotions to sway. Perhaps to the demon the Arch, even her voice and demeanor were already a kind of weapon, a weapon that could confuse one's mind. Uncle Chen, be careful, Shang Qian said. Chen Hang carried the rock-collapsing spear and walked forward step by step on the wild grass. When he saw Zhuang Xiaoyu's unconscious body on the ground, he stretched out his leg and gently sent Zhuang Xiaoyu back. He said, Eldest miss, please treat young Master Zhuang's injuries. Shang Qian flew up and caught Zhuang Xiaoyu. She hurriedly took out some ointment and applied it on him. Zhuang Xiaoyu's true injury was his heart meridian, which had been damaged by the sound of the zither. This was not something that could be treated with ointment. An injury to the heart meridian could only be healed by circulating his internal energy. The only thing Shang Qian could do was use her king's fighting flame to stabilize the chaotic aura in Zhuang Xiaoyu's body so that he would not die in a coma. Eldest miss, let me do it, Bai Mingjie limped over. He was a God-state expert and naturally knew more about the injuries of a God-state expert than Shang Qian. Shang Qian nodded and stood up to look into the distance. She was more concerned about the outcome of the battle between Qin Hang and the demon the Arch. Ping. Qin Hang took a step forward. Divine power surrounded his feet, and the ground seemed to be resonating with him. Every step he took, rocks rose from the ground and formed armor around his legs. When Qin Hang arrived at the bottom of the hill, his entire body was almost protected by the rock armor. Demon the Arch Wuxia smiled and said, "Such a powerful earth elemental divine power. But what can you do?" Qin Hang leaped up and stood proudly in the sky with the rock-collapsing spear in his hand. He said, "We will know once we fight." Before he finished his sentence, Qin Hang's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already above Wuxia's head. The rock-collapsing spear smashed down with the force of a mountain. Wuxia looked up to the sky. There was no fear on her elegant face. Instead, there was a hint of mockery. An invisible wall appeared between the two of them and repelled Qin Hang's attack. At the same time, Wuxia's fingers started to tremble, but there was no sound when she plucked the zither. However, Qin Hang's rock armor showed signs of cracking. Strands of rock shards fell, and he was instantly drenched in sweat. Only God knew how much impact Qin Hang had endured in this instant. "Get lost." Wuxia raised her palm and sent Qin Hang flying 100 meters away with the invisible aura. Kaka, Qin Hang panted heavily and constantly gathered divine power to repair his rock armor. However, the speed of repair was far from enough. Wuxia sneered. Her fingers fluttered like butterflies, and invisible zither music swept over. Pung, pung, Qin Hang could only defend. His rock armor continued to crack as he let out miserable howls. This sacred martial king-level expert was ultimately too inferior to the demon emperor. His defeat was already set in stone. After a series of zither music attacks, Wuxia's right hand suddenly covered the zither strings. The formless energy from all directions slammed into Qin Hang's body, instantly shattering his stone armor. Qin Hang howled in pain as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was like a kite with a broken string as he fell from the sky. Lin Muyu saw everything clearly. Qin Hang's fall lasted for 3 to 5 seconds. As long as Wuxia launched a sound wave attack, Qin Hang's body would be torn into pieces. Obviously, Wuxia did not kill him. She was being merciful. Could it be that the demon the Arch also had fear and apprehension? Lin Muyu frowned and looked at Si Kongyao beside her. She seemed to understand something. Si Kongyao was also very strong, but Wuxia didn't challenge her. The reason was probably because of Si Kongyao's grandfather, Si Kongming. Si Kongming was known as the continent's #1 expert, and his cultivation was at the 94th layer of paradise. This was also Wuxia's apprehension. Once she killed Si Kongyao, Si Kongming would be infuriated, and the forest of no return would definitely suffer. "Uncle Chen." Shang Qian flew forward and snatched Qin Hang back. The corner of Wuxia's mouth curled up again. This smile symbolized massacre. Her beautiful eyes looked at Lin Muyu and said, "You are the one who activated the God Wheel and killed thousands of my demon spirit race, right?" Lin Muyu said frankly, "I had no choice but to let the demon spirit attack." "What a good, no choice." Wuxia sneered and said, "Then I have no choice but to kill you, an outsider." Outsider? Lin Muyu's heart turned cold. This demon the Arch actually knew that she wasn't from the celestial pole continent? Thinking about it carefully, a demon the Arch was equivalent to a god the Arch. This Wuxia was a demon the Arch. Could it be that she had already obtained the ability of a divine strategy and could see through people's hearts? You don't have to guess anymore. I can indeed see your inner world. Wuxia smiled faintly and said, "You and I were originally unrelated. You pursued your Tao and I protected my homeland. However, you entered the forest of no return this time and killed one of my demon venerables. I have to settle this score. The people from the Empire can't save you, and the people from the Divine Realm can't save you either. Come on, do it." Clang. Lin Muyu drew out the Ice Essence sword. There was no need to be sloppy when it came to making a move. Furthermore, Lin Muyu already had a plan. Even if she couldn't win against the demon the Arch, she had to leave this place alive. The demon the Arch could see through people's hearts, and this was rather terrifying. Lin Muyu quickly recited a few chants of the clear heart technique to calm her mind. After her heart became still like water, the demon the Arch naturally couldn't see through any of her plans and thoughts. When Lin Muyu lifted his right leg, he gently stepped 20 centimeters in the air. It was as though he was stepping on an invisible flight of stairs. However, when he stepped down, a golden radiance emitted from his foot. It was the chi radiance of the divine power that transformed into a domain. He stepped into the sky step by step, and the force field of the domain increased layer by layer. It was obviously much more brilliant than Qin Hang's aura presence. Nu Sha couldn't help but smile. Interesting. Si Kongyao knitted her brows slightly. Be careful. Don't worry. Lin Muyu didn't turn back and walked towards Nu Sha step by step. He only stopped when they were less than 10 meters apart. At this moment, the east was already turning bright. The first ray of dawn landed on his handsome face. The morning ray turned into the power of the stars and rapidly surged into the ice essence sword. Lin Muyu's figure instantly went berserk as he turned into a stream of light and rushed straight towards Nu Sha. First appearance of the starlight. When the sword landed, a ray of starlight splashed on the invisible wall in front of Nu Sha. Lin Muyu actually took the initiative to attack when he was fighting against a stronger opponent. This was out of Nu Sha's expectation. Back off. Nu Sha's voice was filled with anger and command. Instantly, layers of sound wave attacks engulfed. There were a total of 91 sound waves. However, when the sound waves were in front of Lin Muyu, they came into contact with a golden radiance. A light pillar crystal that was rapidly revolving appeared. It was the Heaven Dragon Crystal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The Heaven Dragon Crystal let out a sharp buzzing sound, causing indescribable pain in Lin Muyu's body. However, it was only pain and not injury. Just as he expected, the power of the light element was also formless and could resist Nu Sha's law of space attack. Not bad. Nu Sha smiled. Her smile was incomparably beautiful. However, the strings of the pipa moved silently and 3 consecutive sound waves were launched. Lin Muyu gritted his teeth. He couldn't just blindly defend. Otherwise, he would end up like Qin Hang. Swish. The ice essence sword flew out and engulfed in raging flames. It was an attack of the dragon flame spiral break. At the same time, Lin Muyu floated up. Her right fist was filled with the 7 luminaries' Xian energy. Facing Nu Sha's beautiful face, she blasted out a 6 luminaries heaven and earth calamity. Nu Sha was taken aback for a moment. She waved her palm and knocked away the ice origin sword with a pa sound. Then she held her pipa horizontally and stroked both of her palms. Suddenly, a powerful impact pounced forward and collided with the 6 luminaries' heavenly tribulation. In the sky, a golden wave of air rushed out and easily uprooted and crushed all the trees in the hill tribe. A group of demons shrieked and retreated. This was no longer a battle that they could participate in. Nu Sha's strength was too strong. She turned her body and used the pipa as a weapon. With a pung sound, the pipa landed on Lin Muyu's chest. She raised her fist and heavily landed on Lin Muyu's wrist. But a crisp and clear hit. The pain was so painful that Lin Muyu almost thought that the bones in her hand were broken. At the moment of life and death, she didn't think twice and took out the spirit beads of law. The spirit beads of law were fleeting, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into a huge wheel. It was a divine wheel attack. Nu Sha retreated dozens of meters. She raised both her palms and rays of golden light rose. It was also a divine wheel. However, before the 2 divine wheels completely came into contact, Lin Muyu's figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, she appeared behind Nu Sha. She raised her fist and used 100% of her strength. The strongest attack, 7 luminaries stars transformation. Boom, 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 starlight sprinkled on the ground. Countless stars smashed down like cannonballs. Nu Sha's face was aghast as she condensed a divine wall. She looked at Lin Muyu coldly from afar. Under the chaotic fall of the stars, Nu Sha groaned and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. However, Lin Muyu was in an even worse state. The backlash of the 7 luminaries' transformation almost devoured her body. You can go and die now. Nu Sha was only injured but not dead. In a flash, she appeared in the sky above Lin Muyu. She raised her palm and an invisible impact fell. Pang! Lin Muyu didn't die. The dragon blood shield that she hastily condensed saved her life. Chapter 769. Pang! Dust flew as Lin Muyu's body fell to the bottom of the hill, stirring up a few meters of soil and weeds. The aftermath of Nu Sha's attack only exploded after Lin Muyu landed on the ground. A wave of golden radiance surged in all directions, uprooting the nearby trees and sending gravel flying. It had the power to destroy heaven and earth. It was evident how domineering and forceful this attack was. The aura in his body was chaotic and his blood vessels were surging. Lin Muyu finally couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. He was in a sorry state. He was defeated. And he was defeated without any suspense. How could a mere 22nd heaven grotto heaven realm rival Nu Sha's 91st heaven celestial the arch cultivation? Moreover, even when Lin Muyu used her strongest killer move, the 7 glorious stars transformation, it only caused Nu Sha to suffer a slight internal injury. Her combat strength did not weaken by much, and the powerful demonic power was still entrenched in the forest of no return. Above the clouds, Nu Sha was still sitting proudly on the dark red cloud. She looked down at Lin Muyu and said from afar, "Although your cultivation foundation is still shallow, you will definitely achieve great things in the future. I advise you to leave the forest of no return immediately and stay away from Si Kongyao, Shang Qian, and the others. They will bring you misfortune." Lin Muyu stood up shakily and asked, "You won't kill us?" Nu Sha smirked, "Killing you will only bring more hatred. Hurry up and leave. I don't want to see you guys before I change my mind." However, at this moment, a stalwart man on the hill said angrily, "Nu Sha, they killed our demon king brethren. Why should we let them go? Doesn't the demon monarch know about the saying of letting the tiger return to the mountain?" "Liexen, I said we should let them go. But do you dare to object?" Nu Sha's eyes surged with killing intent. The demon king named Liexen trembled and quickly took a few steps back. He said respectfully, "I don't dare." Nu Sha looked up at the sky and said, I'm afraid we have no choice but to let them go." "But see for yourself." In the distance, the roar of a giant dragon came from the sky above the forest. Black shadows flew over from the light of dawn. They were dragon knights. It was a group of dragon riders with the Tianji Empire's emblem on their necks. It was the Tianji Dragon Riders. "Our dragon knight is here." Si Kongyao was overjoyed. She flew forward to help Lin Muyu up. Dragons might spread out in the surroundings, and invisible auras surrounded and protected each other. Between every 2 dragon knights, there was a kind of power that kept them together. 20 dragon knights descended from the sky, forming an impenetrable wall that protected Si Kongyao, Zhuang Xiaoyu, and the others. The dragon knights were clad in exquisite armor, and their faces were filled with the desire to fight. At the very front, a dragon rider riding a black dragon took off his helmet, revealing a determined middle-aged face. He smiled at Si Kongyao and said, "Yao, you really are here." Si Kongyao was pleasantly surprised. "Uncle Lin Tong, you're here? What else? I can't just let you do whatever you want, right?" Lin Tongton had a doting look on his face. "Not long after you left Tianji City, Master asked me to come and protect you." Looks like I'm really late." Lin Tongtian's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He suddenly turned to look at the people from the demon spirit clan. He was even fearless when he met the gaze of the demon emperor Nushi. As one of the 11 martial sage kings of the Tianji Empire, Lin Tongtian was one of the strongest people in the Tianji Dragon Riders. Furthermore, he had a special identity as one of the 3 disciples that Si Kongming was most proud of. He was well versed in the ice laws, and was highly regarded by the Tianji Empire and the Tianji sect. Furthermore, he was a calm person and was known as a famous general of the Tianji Empire. Oh, so you're a dragon knight. Nushi smiled. I knew it. The other human armies don't have such a grand display. Lin Tong'an, have you forgotten about the alliance that the Tianji Empire and the demon spirit clan of the Forest of No Return made over 100 years ago? Now that you've brought your army into the Forest of No Return, can I take it as a provocation? Lin Tong'an smiled and said respectfully, so it's the demon Emperor Nushi, your majesty. I have no intention of overstepping my authority. It's just that these insensible youngsters have entered the Forest of No Return by mistake. I believe they must have had some conflict with the demon spirit clan. Therefore, I hope that your majesty will forgive them and allow me to bring them out of the Forest of No Return. Nushi remained silent. She didn't want to blow things up. After all, it wasn't a wise decision to start a war with the entire Tianji Dragon Riders. However, the demon king Li Exen beside Nushi was furious. He growled, Lin Tong'an, do you think the Forest of No Return is a place where you can come and go as you please? Your juniors killed a demon king of my clan, and you want to leave just like that? What do you want then? Lin Tongtian sneered. What do you want? Let's leave one of them as our sacrifice. The demon king's gaze was aggressive. Otherwise, we can only start a war. The demon spirit clan is never afraid of war. Lin Tongtian remained silent. Zhuang Xiaoyu, who had already woken up, looked around and said, if we really start a war, I'm afraid that a mere 20 dragon riders won't be a match for the entire demon spirit clan. Do we really want to leave one of them as a sacrifice? As he spoke, Zhuang Xiaoyu's gaze landed on Lu Bai and Shi Tianming. These two were the most suitable candidates. Lu Bai felt goosebumps all over his body. He said, Young Master Zhuang, I'm not useless. I can observe the stars, read people's words, and am knowledgeable. I'm a talent. Shi Tianming was speechless. He didn't know what Lu Bai knew. It seemed like he had no choice but to leave him alive. Who would have thought that Lin Tongtian would suddenly pull out a spear from the pouch on the side of the dragon's neck? It was a weapon that was enshrouded in icy aura. It was the ice-congealing spear, a weapon that Sikong Ming had bestowed upon him. It was also a weapon that had accompanied Lin Tongtian for many years. Lin Tongtian's face was filled with arrogance. He smiled and said, they are all from the Tianji Empire. If you want to use them as a sacrifice, you'll have to ask this spear of mine first. How dare you? The demon king Li Exen roared and began to transform into a demon. His arms were trembling on the ground, and his arms were surrounded by a white airflow. His skin cracked open inch by inch, revealing the scales that belonged to a demon. 3 sharp horns protruded from his head, and his eyes instantly turned fiery red. With a ferocious smile, he said, just in time. I really want to see how powerful Lin Tongtian, the leader of the 3 dragon riders of the Tianji Empire, is. The air currents swirled around the hill. The demon king had already turned into a sharp arrow and shot towards the sky. He opened his arms wide and his sharp claws were filled with divine power. Then he attacked Lin Tongtian from midair. Just in time. Lin Tongtian laughed heartily. The ice-congealing spear in his hand spun and shot out. Wisps of icy chi swirled around the spear and with an unstoppable force, it headed straight for the demon king's sharp claws. Clang. The sound of metal clashing could be heard. Lin Tongtian repelled the demon king's sharp claws with a single strike. His palm flew up and a frosty palm print landed on the demon king's chest at lightning speed. Ping! With a single palm strike, it actually caused snow to fall in the sky. Large snowflakes fell from the sky above the hill, and it was a spectacular sight. The demon king spat out a mouthful of blood and fell onto the hill. He held onto his chest, which was already covered with a layer of frost. Demon the Archnushi's eyes turned cold and said, Stop embarrassing yourself. Immediately circulate your energy to dispel the icy aura. Otherwise, you won't be able to protect your heart meridian. Yes, your majesty? Aye, that's enough. Nushi lifted her head to look at Lin Tongtian and smiled. Lord Dragon Rider General is really powerful. Looking at your stance, You want to kill my men in front of me, right? Lin Tongton smiled respectfully and said, How would I dare? It's just that your subordinates are too overbearing. At this moment, a young dragon rider not far away from Lin Tongtian unsheathed his dragon sword and said, Lord Dragon Rider General, what's there to talk about with these demons? Since we are already here, let's follow the laws of the Empire. Slaying demons is the innate mission of the Tianji Dragon Riders. Even the Demon King was injured by you. We don't have to fear them at all. This young dragon rider was of the Sage Heaven realm. According to the classification of the utmost heaven's mainland, he was a low-level martial sage martial venerate warrior. He was basically the lowest-level dragon rider. His cultivation was still shallow and therefore he couldn't feel the demon the Arch Nushi's powerful energy. Are you courting death? Nushi suddenly laughed. Demon, you still want to be so arrogant? The young dragon rider shouted in a low voice. His body was surrounded by King's battle flames and the giant dragon he was riding on roared continuously. You're courting death yourself. Nushi's expression was slightly ferocious as she closed her red lips. Suddenly, a formless energy gathered from all directions and struck the young dragon rider. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, blood flowed from his nostrils, eyes, and ears. In the blink of an eye, he fell off the dragon's back and died. He bled to death from his 7 orifices. What happened? The few dragon riders at the side were filled with grief and anger. Lin Muyu, who was on the ground, was also shocked. At that moment, his spiritual pulse technique had already captured Nushi's energy. That was a formless and soundless spatial energy fluctuation. It was truly a killing technique. No one would have thought that Nushi's cultivation would be so high. This attack could be said to have unleashed the destructive power of the spatial laws to the extreme. The high-frequency spatial fluctuation itself was a killing weapon. Nushi! Lin Tongtian gritted his teeth. Nushi was still hugging her musical instrument. With an apologetic look on her face, she smiled and said, Lord Dragon Rider, it was your subordinate who was aggressive first. You can't blame me for this. Please don't blame me. After all, we only have a few 100,000 demonic spirits in this small forest of no return. How can we go against the millions of soldiers of the Tianji Empire? A few 100,000. Lin Tongtian was secretly shocked. During the war in the forest of no return a few 100 years ago, the number of demonic spirits had already been reduced to a few thousand. He did not expect that in just a few 100 years, their cultivation had increased to a few 100,000. Nushi's words were not to show weakness. Instead, she was retreating in order to advance. She was warning Lin Tongtian to think twice before acting. If he really started a war, Lin Tongtian himself would not be able to escape. If that's the case, Lin Tongtian stabbed the ice-freezing spear into the pouch beside the dragon's neck and said, Then we shall meet again. We shall meet again. Nushi nodded and looked in the direction of Lin Muyu. She smiled and said, Your Highness we shall meet again. Chapter 770. The bright sunlight shone on the forest floor as the group returned along the path they came from. A few dragon knights circled in the air to protect them. Zhuang Xiaoyu, Baiming Jie, and Qin Hang were heavily injured and weakly rode on horseback. Young hero, why did that female assassin call you your highness? Si Kongyao finally couldn't help but ask after holding it in for a long time. I don't know either. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, Perhaps she wasn't calling me, but Baiming Jie. Baiming Jie was stunned. She's the demon emperor and can make predictions. Perhaps the little prince will really ascend to the throne in the future. He said these treasonous words with a straight face. Baiming Jie's face was very calm, but he couldn't help but be ecstatic. Who didn't want to ascend to the throne? After all, the difference between a prince and an emperor was like heaven and earth. In the air, the giant dragon's wings flapped slowly. Lin Tongtian looked at Si Kongyao with gentle eyes and said, Yao, are you really not going to ride on the giant dragon and leave the forest of no return? Si Kongyao said, No, Big brother Xiaoyu and the little prince are both heavily injured and can't stand the cold air. That's fine. Lin Tongtian nodded and revealed a reproachful expression. Yao, you are really too insensible. You actually went to the forest of no return behind Master's back. If I knew you were going to the forest of no return, I'm afraid Master wouldn't have let you come. What kind of place is the forest of no return? It's a place where the demon emperor resides. That female assassin is very powerful, and none of the great saint martial gods of the empire are her match. You guys? Si Kongyao stuck out her tongue and smiled. Uncle Lin Tongtian, we know our mistake. Aren't we following you back now? But our original plan was to travel to the Celestial Empire, so can we go east and directly to the territory of the Celestial Empire through the Forest of No Return? This, Lin Tongtian sighed and said, that's possible, but we still have to be extra careful. The Demon Emperor doesn't have the intention to kill us, but the Demon Kings and Demon Venerables under her can't wait to tear us into pieces. Anyway, we need to speed up our journey and escort you into the territory of the Celestial Empire within 3 days. After that, I'll go back to report on my mission. Yes, thank you, Uncle Lin Tongtian. You? Lin Tongtian smiled faintly. He had watched Si Kongyao grow up and was like an elder to him. There was no need to explain such feelings. Riding on the giant dragon, Lin Tongtian's gaze swept across Zhuang Xiaoyu, Shi Tianming, Lin Muyu, and the rest. Zhuang Xiaoyu was arrogant and had a high cultivation level. He was worthy to be Si Kongyao's friend, but it was hard to say for Shi Tianming. As for that unknown wanderer, Lin Tongtian actually couldn't see through his cultivation level. Ordinary cultivators would intentionally or unintentionally reveal their cultivation level. Take Zhuang Xiaoyu for example. Although he was severely injured, the aura in his body was still circulating. When he circulated his energy to heal his injuries, a faint glow of divine power would appear on the surface of his body. Lin Tongtian could easily see that Zhuang Xiaoyu had 29 paradise cultivation levels, but he couldn't see through Lin Muyu. This young man was like a bottomless abyss. He was like an ancient well with no ripples. In fact, it was impossible to tell whether he had entered the paradise or not. After nightfall, the mountain breeze blew. Lin Muyu, Si Kongyao, Shang Qian, and the rest were barbecuing food around the bonfire. The 19 dragon riders were perched on the surrounding hills, protecting the group of royal family members in the valley. Lin Tongtian was silent. He hugged the ice-freezing spear and lay on the neck of the giant dragon. He looked into the distance, and no one knew what he was thinking about. After eating, Lin Muyu returned to his tent alone. His brows were tightly furrowed. He was thinking about something different again. The Tianji Empire was gathering troops, preparing provisions, and preparing for war. Judging from the situation, they needed a large number of warships to advance westward to attack the Qin Empire. Including the time needed to forge warships, prepare provisions, and prepare weapons, it would take at least another half a year. This also meant that the shattered tripod world still had half a year to prepare for war. What Lin Muyu needed to do was to extend this time as much as possible. Time was very important to both sides, but the Qin Empire obviously needed it more. Without enough time, there would not be enough warships and magic crystal cannons. Moreover, Qin Xiling was taking the time to improve the magic crystal cannons. If they wanted to win the next war, they still needed this kind of powerful weapon. Lying in the tent, he recalled everything that had happened during the day. Suddenly, Lin Muyu sat up. She was confused. Just what kind of power did the Nusslayer use to launch a silent and invisible attack to kill a powerful dragon knight from a distance? The power of the law of space was indeed magical. If she could master and control it, wouldn't it be like adding wings to a tiger? Thinking of this, he opened his palm and a small spiritual pearl of law appeared. It was a white spiritual pearl of law of space. With a shake of his palm, the spiritual pearl of law seeped into his palm. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. While thinking about how Nusslayer used her strength to launch the sound wave attack during the day, he gently shook his palm and imitated Nusslayer's route. However, although his every shake caused the pulse of the air, it was far from Nusslayer's lethality. Moreover, there was a faint sound. His realm was much lower. Sound, a silent sound. What kind of power was that? Lin Muyu was puzzled. Although his comprehension was outstanding, this was a realm that he had never touched. He had the strongest spiritual pearl of law of space in the world, but he could not control the strongest power of the law of space. He could not accept such a regret. He must cultivate to the same level as Nusslayer. After an unknown period of time, a dragon rider's voice suddenly came from the hillside outside. Who is it? Come out. Immediately after the sound of metal colliding, dragon roars could be heard. There seemed to be a battle. Lin Muyu opened the tent and flew out. He raised his hand and pulled out the Ice Origin sword. Looking at the hillside, he realized that a dragon rider was already riding on the back of a dragon. The dragon rider shouted, "Lord Lin Tong, there was someone sneaking around just now. He has already escaped. Should we chase after him? Is it a demonic spirit?" Lin Tongtian was still hugging the ice-freezing spear and leaning on the black dragon's neck. No, he doesn't have a strong demonic power. He's a human. His cultivation has already reached Saint Martial Venerable. Saint Martial Venerable? Lin Tongtian frowned and said, "Take the first team of 10 people and chase after him. Be careful." The huge dragons flapped their wings and flew up. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the night sky. What happened? Si Kongyao rubbed her sleepy eyes and asked as she came out of the tent. "It seems like a thief," Shang Qian said. "Thief?" Si Kongyao couldn't help but laugh. "Trying to steal from the Tianji dragon riders? Isn't that asking for death? Furthermore, this is the forest of no return. How could there be a thief? It must be someone with bad intentions." At this moment, Zhuang Xiaoyu, Shi Tianming and the others were also woken up. They each walked out of their tents to the campfire outside. Lin Tongtian held the ice-freezing spear and stood up from the huge dragon's side. He said respectfully, "Miss Yao, Miss Shang Qian, you're both awake? What's going on?" "I don't know. Anyone who can appear in the forest of no return must not be simple." Lin Tongtian frowned and said, "I'm afraid this is a ploy to lure us away. We'll be safe here. Don't worry. With the Tianji dragon riders here, who would dare to do anything?" Shang Qian bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord Lin Tong." "You're welcome." Mississippi Lin Tongtian was the leader of the 3 dragon riders and the most powerful warrior in the entire Tianji dragon cavalry except for Bai Minghuan, the commander and marshal of the empire. His status was no less honorable than that of the prime minister, which was why even Shang Qian, Zhuang Xiaoyu, and the others had to be respectful to him. At this moment, a hoarse and miserable howl came from the tent behind him. The scream was very shrill in the middle of the night. "Who is it?" Si Kongyao looked around and said, "Why hasn't Bai Mingjie come out?" "Oh no!" Lin Muyu clenched her teeth. Through the spirit pulse spell, she could sense a very powerful divine power fluctuation from the tent behind them. Someone must be here, and not a weak one at that. Everyone hurried over. When they opened Bai Mingjie's tent, they were all scared out of their wits. Bai Mingjie was lying quietly in the tent with an arrow in his chest. Blood was still flowing. He was dead. The son of the Luo king had been assassinated. Moreover, there was a bloody hole in the middle of Bai Mingjie's eyebrows, as if someone had taken something out of his head. And the item was Bai Mingjie's heavenly Dao lattice. So cruel. Si Kongyao stood there in a daze. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, looked cautiously at the empty space at the side. There were still energy ripples from the space shuttling. Obviously, the assassin had just used his ability to break through the void and left not long ago. In the spirit pulse technique, a strong aura appeared 3 miles away and was quickly leaving. "It must be him. You guys stay here." Lin Tongtian took a deep breath and held the ice coagulation spear. "I'll go after this person. Young hero, young Master Xiaoyu, you 2 guard the 2 ladies. Don't leave and fall into the trap of luring us away. I'll be back soon." When Lin Muyu and Zhuang Xiaoyu nodded in agreement, Lin Tongtian had already disappeared. His speed of shattering the void was extremely fast and silent. Si Kongyao frowned slightly. She could not bear to look at Bai Mingjie's corpse. He was the son of the Luo king, the young prince of the empire, and the most powerful person in the younger generation of the royal family. Now that he had died in the forest of no return, it was truly regrettable. What do we do now? Si Kongyao asked. Lin Muyu's voice was very calm. Whoosh. A few miles away, Lin Tongtian appeared in the air with the ice coagulation spear. With a roar, a black dragon appeared from the alternate dimension. He rode on the dragon and flew forward. It seemed like the assassin was waiting for him there. Under the moonlight, the assassin held a fiery red longsword and wore a black cloak. Even his face was covered. Are you the one who killed Bai Mingjie? Lin Tongtian asked. That's right. He smiled casually. An arrow through the heart. The top rookie of the Tianji Empire's royal family is really a piece of trash. Courting death. Lin Tongtian brandished his spear and charged forward. He had used 90% of his power in the first strike. Bam! Flames and frost collided, sparks flying everywhere. The assassin was still standing steadily in the air. He held a long sword in his hand, and at the tip of the blade, a small nomological spirit bead was dancing. Lin Tongtian was horrified. His heart was filled with despair. At the same time, there was a rustling sound in the surrounding forest. One by one, black figures appeared. There was no lack of martial venerables among them. However, they did not attack immediately. Instead, they drew their bows and aimed their arrows at Lin Tongtian, the top dragon rider of the Tianji Empire. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.